Chapter 36-26. The death prison pirates had been secretly breaking the seal here for 6 years and made many arrangements, but they were all destroyed in one move, so their arrangements were all for naught. However, the outside world was still quiet, and there were no abnormalities. It could be seen that their covert work was done well. However, this silence was only equivalent to the immortal territory. In the outside world, the death prison pirates seemed to have gone crazy, and they kept heading out of the immortal territory. At the same time, the Holy Thunder Clan also made a move. They had already invested a lot of manpower here, but this time, they actually transferred people over again. This made many forces vaguely feel that perhaps something big was about to happen again. For a time, the undercurrent outside the immortal territory was turbulent. Zi-Chen put away the Soul Residence and left this place. The entrance had been opened, and the teleportation array had been destroyed. Without the guidance of the teleportation token, the death prison pirates could no longer come here. Zi-Chen came to the immortal city. There were many more people here than before, and all of them were using special methods to search for something. After Zi-Chen suddenly appeared, many gazes fell on him. These gazes were very unfriendly. There were even more than a dozen people in the crowd approaching him. Zi-Chen walked out of the city. "Stop right there." A cold voice suddenly sounded. A group of 5 people blocked Zi-Chen's path. "Do you want to die?" Zi-Chen glanced at the leader and narrowed his eyes. There was a cold light in his eyes. The leader's expression changed instantly because in that instant, he felt as if he was being stared at by an ancient divine dragon. He felt a chill down his spine. The other party was a 7-star, but Zi-Chen had killed many 7-star cultivators. This murderous aura could completely intimidate the other party. He scanned the city with his spiritual senses and did not find anyone from the Holy Thunder Clan. Obviously, they stayed in the outside world and disdained to search for opportunities here. As for whether these people would harm him, Zi-Chen was not worried. Lei Wushuang knew his realm, so of course, he was not worried. Of course, from another perspective, it was also because of trust. "If you don't want to die, get out of my way." Zi-Chen's expression was cold, and killing intent began to surge around him. In a place like this, it was normal to kill a few people. Sometimes, it was necessary to intimidate. If these people didn't know what was good for them, then Zi-Chen could only use them as a warning to others. Zi-Chen walked forward. Seeing that he was getting closer and closer to them, their expressions began to change. It was obvious that they were worried about their gains and losses. The surrounding people all looked over with strange expressions on their faces. Wang. The Holy Spirit flying knife appeared and flew forward with a beam of cold light. At the same time, Zi-Chen stretched out his hand and pointed a finger. A streak of ancient thunder flame energy appeared on his fingertip. Kai. The ancient thunder flame sword chi that flew out of his fingertip pierced through the 7-star Great Lord's body. As for the other 6-star Saint Spirits, their sea of consciousness was pierced by the Saint Spirit flying dagger. After killing several people, Zi-Chen's aura and footsteps didn't change at all. As he walked past the corpses, Zi-Chen took the opportunity to collect them. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes, which had been filled with uncertainty, were now filled with awe. Zi-Chen didn't think about whether these people had other motives or whether killing them would cause trouble in the future. Because it was useless to think too much. It was fine as long as there was no trouble at the moment. He directly left the immortal city. Looking back at the city, he was afraid that he wouldn't come back again. Arriving at the peak of the mountains, Lei Wushuang sat on the cliff, swinging her white legs and looking into the distance. "Did you succeed?" she said without turning her head. Her tone was relatively calm. "Yes." Zi-Chen sat beside Lei Wushuang. Lei Wushuang turned her head and glanced at Zi-Chen. "Not bad. What are your plans next?" "We'll wait for the lineage ancestor to come." Lei Wushuang suddenly sighed. "You've made a great contribution to the Holy Thunder Clan again. Unfortunately, not everyone is happy for you." Zi-Chen smiled faintly. "As long as I have a clear conscience. Moreover, I'm not a soul-gathering crystal. Do I have to be liked by everyone?" A smile appeared on Lei Wushuang's face. "Oh, I didn't expect that you would learn to joke after disappearing for a few years. After receiving the message, the bloodline ancestor left the camp for the first time and headed for the core area. He didn't care about the soul-gathering crystal load, but after all, he was a member of the Holy Thunder clan. He had to do something for the clan. Moreover, through his intelligence, he had learned that the Death Prison pirates had gone crazy and used extremely powerful forces. Therefore, even if it wasn't for the Holy Thunder clan, he had to go deep in order to protect Zichen. In less than a day, the bloodline ancestor arrived at the peak of the mountains. Even Zichen couldn't match his speed. Zichen and Lei Wushuang were chatting at the edge of the cliff. After sensing the aura of the bloodline ancestor, they looked back and saw him appear as if he had teleported. They immediately stood up and saluted him. The bloodline ancestor waved his hand. As a teenager, he patted Zichen's shoulder with some effort and praised, "Little guy, well done." Zichen said, "It's what I should do." The bloodline ancestor said, "Don't be modest. Tell me what you think." Zichen had already made up his mind about this. He pointed to his feet and said, "I want 30% of the profits in this place and 30% of the soul-gathering crystal load." Lei Wushuang looked at Zichen with some surprise. She knew very well how much Zichen had asked for after conquering that world last time. A smile appeared on her face again. It seemed that this guy was finally enlightened after experiencing life and death back then. Okay. The bloodline ancestor didn't think too much. He didn't even hesitate and nodded directly. You agreed just like that. This caused Zichen to be slightly stunned. Under normal circumstances, shouldn't they be haggling? Boy, you're not stupid. The bloodline ancestor said, if you ask for less, the others in the clan will do whatever they can to get a bigger share. They will scheme against each other and do some dirty things. That's good. Moreover, as long as you are in the Holy Thunder clan, these gains are still the Holy Thunder clan's. It's better to keep them with you than to give them to others. Zichen was very moved. The bloodline ancestor, whom he had offended in the past, was really good to him. He handed the transmission token to the bloodline ancestor and said, "Then I won't care about what happens next." The bloodline ancestor took the token and said, "Don't worry. With me here, what can go wrong? Moreover, if you have to worry about everything, why should the Holy Thunder clan take the biggest share?" The Holy Thunder clan, Tianwu World. Lei Lan had been guarding this place since she came back. Because of her existence, the Lei Zheng family no longer dared to come here to make trouble. Even Lei Zhenghong's family was forcibly expelled by her. Because of that, the martial heaven world didn't decline after the disappearance of its master. Instead, it continued to prosper. The reason why Lei Lan was guarding this place was to wait. This wait lasted for several years. Finally, Lei Lan heard the news of Zichen's reappearance. After hearing the news of Zichen's appearance, she cried with joy. At the same time, the news spread and the whole Tianwu world was boiling. Jolina, who had been under a lot of pressure, finally breathed a sigh of relief. On this day, a powerful aura came to this world, causing the whole world to shake as if it couldn't bear this power and was about to collapse. This was the aura of a holy master. Chapter 36-27. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. The continuous actions of the Death Prison pirates had finally revealed their true purpose. They had lost the mineral load they had obtained back then. And it was snatched away by Zichen alone. As soon as the news came out, it caused an uproar. Back then, the Holy Thunder clan had issued a kill order because Zichen had betrayed them and colluded with the Death Prison pirates. However, this incident was undoubtedly the best response to the kill order from back then. The Zichen incident that was about to die down had once again become the topic of everyone's attention. For a time, the discussion started again. However, the focus of those major forces was no longer on this place, but on the soul-gathering crystal load. In the past few years, they had never given up looking for the soul-gathering crystal load. However, the Death Prison pirates were very secretive, so they could not find any clues. However, the Holy Thunder clan was different. They had their own independent world and a camp that everyone knew. For a time, the representatives of various forces all went to the camp. Coincidentally, The bloodline ancestor was not in the camp. This made the Holy Thunder Clan's camp face a threat for the first time. Although all the forces were restraining themselves, no one knew when this restraint would erupt. When that time came, there would definitely be a great war. At this moment, there was one more person in the camp. It was the other of the spiritual and bloodline ancestors. The spiritual ancestor's true body had arrived. Even though the realm was suppressed here, a holy sage was still a holy sage. All the forces reluctantly retreated and did not dare to gather here again. With the spiritual ancestor in charge, the camp became impregnable again. After the bloodline ancestor, who had been blocking Zichen at the peak of the mountains, received the news, he signaled that Zichen could go back. "Let's go. I'll go back with you." Lei Wushuang had lost interest in this place. As a core member, it would be a waste for her to stay here. Therefore, she went back with Zichen. In the camp, Zichen met the spiritual ancestor. "Go. This time, no one will dare to harm you." The spiritual ancestor waved at Zichen. Zichen cupped his fists and bowed. Then, he stepped into the teleportation array with Lei Wushuang. After 2 teleportations, Zichen arrived outside the immortal domain. It was worth mentioning that a month ago, when Zichen returned, he killed the 7 stars guardian of the teleportation array. However, after someone spread the news, not only was the bounty order not renewed, but the original guardians were all replaced. It should be noted that the Holy Thunder Clan had given them a huge reward for sending 6-star and 7-star holy spirits to guard the teleportation formation. For the majority of sacred spirits who were unable to participate in the mining directly, guarding the teleportation formation here was a lucrative job. The rewards were all celestial stones. In order to be able to come here, many of them had used their connections. The sudden change of guard also caused the guardians who had spent a lot of effort to come here to suffer a great loss. When Zichen appeared, he found that many people had gathered here. The number of people here even exceeded the number of spectators when he was surrounded and killed in the limitless starfield. When these people saw Zichen, they started a riot. But that was it. No one dared to cause trouble for Zichen at this time. Because there were 2 people standing outside the teleportation array. A man and a woman. Naturally, they were Lei Di and Lei Lan. With a sacred master personally overseeing this place, there would definitely be no accidents. The moment Zichen walked out of the teleportation array, he saw Lei Di and Lei Lan. He was immediately stunned. Then, his face revealed a look of ecstasy. "Sacred Master." Zichen walked forward and hurriedly cupped his fists at Lei Di to greet him. Speaking of which, he only had gratitude in his heart towards Lei Di. Lei Lan looked at Zichen. Originally, she had a lot of things to say to Zichen. However, after seeing Zichen, she did not know what to say. Especially when Lei Wushuang was beside her, it made her feel even more helpless. "Thank you for your hard work. Let's go back." Lei Di nodded slightly at Zichen. Obviously, he came here this time for Zichen. At this moment, Zichen finally understood the spirit ancestor's meaning. With Lei Di by his side, he believed that no one would dare to cause trouble for him. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly descended. It was another sacred master's aura. Exclamations came from the crowd, and everyone turned their heads to look around. There was one more person in the void. He was wearing a black robe, and the sacred master's aura came from that place. "Haven't you death prison pirates been living by hiding your head and showing your tail? How come you have the guts to show up today?" Lei Di glanced at the black-robed man and said coldly. When the holy spirits outside heard that, they widened their eyes in shock. Obviously, this person was the sacred master of the death prison pirates. The sacred master from the death prison pirates said, "Lei Di, you don't have to be wary of me. I came here with no evil intentions. I just have a question to ask Zichen. We are not familiar with you, and Zichen has nothing to do with the death prison pirates. So, I have nothing to answer you." Lei Di said indifferently, "Or, do you want to exchange a few moves with me?" "Lei Di, we know that you have some tricks up your sleeve. However, this is a serious matter. We must get an answer." At this moment, another cold voice sounded. "We are still talking to you. If you insist on not cooperating, don't blame us for being impolite." Two sacred masters. The death prison pirates had sent two sacred masters at the same time. This caused everyone to be incomparably shocked. At the same time, they all stared at Zichen. They also wanted to know what kind of secret Zichen knew that even the Saint Sovereign was so interested in. "Do you think that you can be confident with just two people?" Lei Di smiled disdainfully and said, "It seems that after not showing up for so many years, no one knows who I am. Just two sacred masters dare to threaten me." As soon as he finished speaking, Lei Di released his aura. Apparently, he was going to fight against two sacred masters at the same time. Zichen stood behind Lei Di and felt the vast aura on Lei Di. He was shocked. Was this the power of a sacred master? The atmosphere instantly became tense. Everyone began to retreat, their expressions nervous and full of excitement. Being able to watch a battle between heavenly sovereigns was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Moreover, it was a battle against two sacred masters at the same time. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the sky. "Lei Di, go back to your clan first. I will deal with this matter." It was an old voice. However, since he dared to call out Lei Di's name directly, it was obviously another sacred master. It was Lei Zhengke. He was known as the strongest person in the Holy Thunder Clan and was in existence from the ancient times. Being old enough meant that he was strong enough. Unexpectedly, even the strongest person in the clan had shown up. Zichen had seen Lei Zhengke before. It was him and Lei Di who had brought him back. After that, he had not seen him in the Holy Thunder Clan. It was said that he had personally sealed the coffin to kill Su Ping. Humph. Chapter 36-28. With a Saint Venerable leading the way, there was no danger on the way back. Moreover, most of the forces were focused on the solar-massing crystal mine, not Zichen. The reason why two Saint Venerables from the death prison pirates came to stop Zichen was not because of the loss of the solar-massing crystal mine, but because they wanted to know the source of Zichen's power to counter the Black Flame. This was more important to the death prison pirates than the solar-massing crystal mine. Because once this power spread, the death prison pirates, who had always been the nemesis of the Spirit Clan, would have their own nemesis. On the way back, Lei Lan plucked up her courage several times, but in the end, she did not manage to ask whether Zichen had put himself in danger for her. Zichen did not mention what had happened in the past. After noticing that Lei Lan's cultivation level had increased, he congratulated her. Saint Venerable Lei Di told him that his friends had been taken care of, which made Zichen feel completely relieved. The journey back was peaceful, but the Saint Spirit sector was not peaceful at all. All the force's attention was on the immortal sector again. The solar-massing crystal mine became a hot topic again. Of course, Zichen was the topic of discussion that couldn't be avoided. After 6 years, Zichen had taken back the mine, so he was not guilty of being a traitor. But why did Zichen hand over the mine? Regarding this issue, there were many speculations on the street. Some of them were even ridiculous. The Holy Thunder Clan had sent a large number of experts to the immortal sector, but they still could not suppress the other forces. Relatively speaking, the death prison pirates were better than the Holy Thunder Clan in this aspect, because they were always secretive, but the Holy Thunder Clan was not. Therefore, in order to ensure that they could successfully get the solar-massing crystal mine, the Holy Thunder Clan could only send a large number of experts, including the former core disciples, to the immortal sector. At the same time, the extreme core disciples who rarely went out also walked out of their cultivation grounds and headed for the immortal sector. Relatively speaking, it was rare for Zichen to walk back. Lei Wushuang and Lei Wusheng were not deployed this time. At the same time, there were a few other forces that were not conscripted. The leader of the group was the Lei Zheng family. Even though the Holy Thunder Clan was in need of manpower, they still refused to accept this force, which was one of the largest clans in the Holy Thunder Clan. Following that were the forces led by the Hu clan that had conflicts with Zichen. It could be said that the immortal domain they discovered this time was a place of rare fortuitous encounters, and all the powers of all sizes had obtained great gains. Only those powers that had once acted against Zichen in the past were exceptions. After returning to the Holy Thunder Clan this time, the Holy Sage Lei Di did not come to the Tianwu world again. The Holy Sage was extremely mysterious, and it was extremely difficult for ordinary people to see him. The last time he descended, it was on purpose. Lei Wushuang wanted to head to the core city, so he left. Lei Lan did not go back. Instead, she followed Zichen back to the Tianwu world. The Tianwu world reacted to Zichen's return. Countless rules appeared in the sky, blooming like fireworks. Outside the city, all the spirit trees were swaying, and the strange creatures living in them were making sounds in unison. The various cities cheered. Those powers that were still working with Zichen finally felt relieved. Zichen saw Jolina. Compared to a few years ago, her strength had changed quite a bit. Jolina was very excited. After all, the danger that Zichen had experienced this time was really beyond what he had experienced in the past. Fortunately, it was all over. The atmosphere in the immortal domain was still very tense. Zichen stayed in the Tianwu world, but it was rare for him to have some peace and quiet. Perhaps it was because of the arrival of the Holy Sage, but the Lei Zheng family did not come looking for trouble. In the immortal domain, the various powers had put a lot of pressure on the Holy Thunder Clan. Fortunately, a war had not broken out yet. The spirit ancestor was personally overseeing this place, and the bloodline ancestor was guarding the mountain range. In addition, the holy spirits that the bloodline ancestor was secretly searching for had already been sent to the soul-gathering crystal mine through a teleportation token. They had already started mining. No power had found this place yet. The next step was to wait. Wait for those people to return from mining. It had been a whole month since he returned to the Tianwu world. During this time, Zichen had a rare moment of leisure. Even though he did not deliberately cultivate, his soul had still grown quite a bit. That was because the entire soul palace was in his sea of consciousness. When it absorbed the soul aura from the outside world, it was also releasing soul power. Zichen's soul had always been growing stronger. Most of the time, Zichen was drawing talismans. After breaking through to the 6-star level, his soul realm had improved greatly again. Now, he could draw 6-star sacred talismans. His sacred talisman master level had reached the 6-star level, but he had not gone for certification yet. Rubbing the token in his hand, Zichen fell into deep thought. This was the sacred thunder golden talisman token, which he had obtained during the last trial. It was said that after he became a 6-star sacred talisman master, he could activate this token and participate in the assessment trial. Once he passed, he would be able to obtain the second part of the Dark Ghost Devouring Soul technique. Now, Zichen was considering whether to participate in the assessment immediately. After thinking about it, Zichen put away this token. He had to participate in the assessment, but now was not the time. Because he did not know how long the assessment would take, Zichen needed to make some plans for the Tianwu world during this time. For example, the Holy Thunder Clan had not fulfilled their promise to him for the many resources he had obtained last time. Now that he had not received a single reward, he wanted to wait for those rewards to be issued first and use these rewards to continue to strengthen the Tianwu world. However, after waiting for another month, there was still no news from the higher-ups. Therefore, Zichen decided to go to the core city personally to take a look. As a core disciple of the Holy Thunder Clan, all his rewards should be received in the core city. After entering the core city, Zichen found that it was much more deserted. The conflict in the immortal realm was still there. Most of the core disciples had been transferred over, and even many of the core disciples had been transferred over. Zichen went to find Grace. She was one of his few friends here, but Zichen was not sure if she had also been transferred. After walking to the place where Grace worked and letting someone report that Grace was still in the core city, Zichen's mood became better. However, he waited for a full hour before he saw Grace. "Sorry, there have been too many things recently, so I haven't had time to see you." When she saw Zichen, Grace said apologetically. Looking at the document in her hand, Zichen smiled slightly and said, "Are you very busy?" Grace nodded. The discovery of the immortal realm this time and the harvest were beyond everyone's expectations, so it will take a long time to calculate everyone's contributions. Why are you free to come over today? I want to take back part of my reward first and use it to develop the Tianwu world. Zichen explained the purpose of his visit. Chapter 36-29. Back then, Zichen really made a great contribution to the Holy Thunder Clan in the Immortal Realm. Not to mention how much they had gained from planting those flags in that huge world, just the planet that they had conquered was already a huge sum according to the original share. Before coming here, Zichen was worried that he wouldn't be able to calculate it, but now it seems that this is obviously not the case. Looking at Zichen shaking his head, Grace said, "It shouldn't be, it should have been distributed a long time ago. I'll help you ask now." "Thank you very much. You don't have to be so polite with me." Grace smiled and left in a hurry. This time, Zichen waited for 2 hours. When Grace appeared again, Zichen found that the other party's eyes were red, as if she had just cried. "What happened?" Zichen asked in confusion. "I don't have enough authority to find out about your contribution." Grace said with shame, "Zichen, I'm sorry." Looking at the aggrieved Grace, Zichen's doubts became stronger. This matter is obviously not as she said. If it's just that she doesn't have enough authority, why is she crying? Zichen said calmly, "Who is your person in charge?" "I'll ask him." Grace shook her head and said, "Forget it, I know another person in charge. He is not here these days. When he comes back, I'll help you ask about this matter." "Really?" Zichen looked at Grace. Grace smiled, "Of course, you don't believe me?" Zichen nodded. "It's rare to see you, let's go, I'll treat you to something to eat." Grace took the initiative to invite. Zichen was surprised, "Aren't you very busy?" "Even if I'm busy, I have time to rest. Besides, it's rare to see you, it's just time for a meal." Before Grace could finish her words, a cold voice suddenly came from inside. "You have been dismissed. What are you still doing here?" A beautiful woman came out from behind and said in a cold tone. "Dismissed?" Zichen's expression changed. He looked at Grace and asked, "What's going on?" The beautiful woman sneered, "Neglecting your duties and meddling in other people's business. We, the Holy Thunder Clan, do not need such people." Zichen looked at Grace, who lowered her head. For him to be fired for no reason, it was obviously related to what he had just asked. "Who are you? Why are you standing here? Don't you know where this is?" The beautiful middle-aged woman looked at Zichen with cold eyes. "I am Zichen. I am here to receive my reward," Zichen said in a deep voice. At the same time, he stared at the middle-aged woman. "What Zichen? I've never heard of him. We don't know what the reward is. Now hurry up and leave. Is this a place where people like you should come?" The middle-aged woman looked at them with disdain and began to drive them away. If Zichen still couldn't see the problem, then he would be a real fool. Clearly, he was being targeted again. Moreover, Grace had also been removed from her position because of him. "Let's go." Seeing the change in Zichen's expression, Grace hurriedly stepped forward and said, "This is the core city, and it has its own rules. You can't do whatever you want just because you are strong. Hurry up and get lost. No one is allowed to come near this place," the beautiful woman said again, her words extremely harsh. Buzz. Zichen's aura surged, and there was a strong pressure around him. "What, you dare to make a move here?" The beautiful woman stretched out her finger and pointed at Zichen. "Let me tell you, this place has its own rules. Get lost before we get angry. I'm here to get my contribution reward." Zichen suppressed his anger and tried to keep himself calm. "Who do you think you are? How dare you behave atrociously here?" The beautiful woman was obviously angry. "Hurry up and get lost. Zichen, let's leave here first. I will think of a way for you to get your reward." Grace used a voice transmission to say this because she knew the rules here and also knew that this department had a huge amount of power in the entire Holy Thunder tribe. Zichen sighed. He had already guessed the purpose of the other party. In fact, he had already guessed who the mastermind behind this was. It seems that those people still haven't given up. Grace reminded Zichen through telepathy again. Zichen shook his head and said, "It seems that you still haven't given up. Since you want to make trouble, then let's make it bigger." A powerful aura surged out from Zichen's body like a stormy sea. Boom! Where Zichen stood, the stone slab under his feet cracked, and the building was instantly destroyed. Countless smoke and dust rose into the sky. This is the place in charge of the distribution of rewards, and it holds great power. It is also the place where the Holy Thunder Clan can make the most money. Even a precious thing like Thunder Leaf is distributed from here. Fighting is forbidden here, and challenges are not allowed. Fighting here indicates that you are challenging the dignity of the Holy Thunder Clan, and you will be severely punished. The middle-aged woman, who had always been overbearing, raised the corners of her mouth to form a smile amidst the billowing smoke. He really took the bait. She allowed the smoke and dust to fall on her body without using energy to block it. In an instant, she became unkempt. She didn't even need to deliberately remind them. Several law enforcers suddenly appeared and stood in the air. They asked coldly, "What happened?" "He came here to cause trouble and even wanted to kill people." The beautiful woman with unkempt hair pointed at Zichen and said, "Arrest him quickly. I suspect that he is a spy sent by other clans to steal our information." When the smoke and dust dispersed, these law enforcers saw Zichen. They were all stunned. As law enforcers of this core city, they had seen Zichen block the gate and naturally knew Zichen. Zichen looked at these law enforcers and said, "This has nothing to do with you. Don't be used by others. This time, I am here to take back the reward that belongs to me." "What reward? He's a spy. He broke the rules here. Why don't you arrest him quickly?" The beautiful woman's sharp voice sounded. She seemed to be flustered and exasperated. The law enforcers looked a little hesitant. At this moment, one of the law enforcers said indifferently, "The rules are the rules. No matter what reason you have or excuse you find, you are the one who broke the rules first. Everyone, in order to protect the dignity of the Holy Thunder Clan, we must arrest him." The other law enforcers were still hesitant. The other party said again, "The rules of the Holy Thunder Clan have been challenged. The thief is right in front of you. What are you hesitating for?" Zichen let out a long sigh and said, "Looks like you guys are really determined to make a big deal out of this matter this time. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish." A shining saber light broke through the air. Poof! Holy blood splattered. The law enforcer's body was split into two. He was killed with one slash. Chapter 36:30. There were many powerhouses living in the core city of the Holy Thunder Clan. This was the real core. Not only were there core disciples, but there were also extreme core disciples. Under normal circumstances, all fights were prohibited here. Even if it was a normal challenge, there were different areas. For example, this place called Lightning Defense was not allowed to be challenged. As for killing, it was even more forbidden. Zichen's attack had completely violated the rules of this place, causing an uproar in an instant. Rays of light appeared from behind the collapsed buildings. These people were all holy spirits. When they appeared, they did not hesitate to attack Zichen. There were no superfluous words, only vibrating energy and surging cold murderous intent. Zichen snorted coldly and unsheathed his saber again. These people were only 2 or 3 stars. For Zichen, it was just a matter of quantity. Wherever the saber light passed, the low-level holy spirits fell to the ground and died. The beautiful woman had already retreated far away. At this moment, looking at the corpses falling from the sky, her heart was only filled with joy. Of course, these people were not a threat to Zichen, but they were all living beings. Now that 5 of them were gone in an instant, it meant that Zichen had killed 5 more people here. He had already broken the rules. Now that the number of lives had increased, it was a mistake on top of a mistake. In this case, even if Zichen had the protection of a holy master, it would be useless. Thief, die. Those 2 or 3 stars were obviously not afraid of death. Seeing their companions fall one by one, they still charged forward. Then, they died. Zichen did not hold back. The moment he drew his blade, he was already prepared to start a massacre. The other few law enforcement officers were completely stunned. What was this? At this moment, they could neither advance nor retreat. They stood there helplessly. How dare you behave so atrociously here? You're courting death. A cold voice sounded again. Another Holy Spirit flew out from lightning defense and charged toward Zi Chen. Grace looked at this scene, her eyes full of guilt and regret. If she had known that such a thing would happen, she would have performed better. She shouldn't have let Zi Chen see that she was in a bad mood. Otherwise, such a thing wouldn't have happened. Moreover, looking at the former colleagues who were rushing towards Zi Chen like moths to a flame, her feelings were indescribably complicated. Zi Chen stood in the air, his body surging with murderous intent. He had killed countless seven-star saint spirits, so why would he care about the attacks of these weak saint spirits? Wang. Light flickered around his body as the demonic saber was unsheathed once more. The arc of the blade extended into the distance, and several holy spirits were cut in half at the waist. This was simply a massacre. Such a huge commotion had already attracted a lot of attention, but no one stepped forward to stop it. Everyone just watched from afar. Zi Chen was a famous person, so they naturally knew who he was. But this time, he had caused such a big commotion, so he would definitely be punished severely. Perhaps there was some misunderstanding, but rules were still rules. If one violated them, they would be punished. Many people looked at Zi Chen, who was showing his invincible power, without the slightest admiration on their faces. Instead, they were full of pity. The more people he killed, the more severe the punishment would be. Moreover, the law enforcers would be arriving soon. They represented the most extreme forces in this city. How dare you behave atrociously in the core city? You're courting death. An angry voice sounded from afar. Another group of law enforcers had finally arrived. The leader was a six-star saint spirit. He was surrounded by murderous intent. He was a small captain, and behind him were 7 5-star saint spirits. Wang. Zi Chen didn't turn around to look at the other party. The saint spirit flying dagger appeared on its own and turned into a stream of light as it moved forward. In an instant, there were popping sounds, and the 8 law enforcers all fell from the sky. He killed 8 people in an instant. This was Zi Chen's true combat strength. While everyone was shocked, many people shook their heads. He even killed the law enforcers. This was too lawless. This matter was destined to be irreversible. There were too many strong people in this city. Not to mention that Zi Chen was only a 6-star, even if he was a 9-star, he still wouldn't be qualified to be arrogant. When the battle broke out in the city, the special beings living in other places all sensed it. Lei Di stayed in his mansion and raised his eyebrows slightly. Steward Mo walked in from outside and asked worriedly, "Lord, this matter?" Lei Di waved his hand and said lightly, "Ignore it." The steward nodded, but he was obviously still worried about this matter. He walked out of the courtyard to check it out personally. Bang! Lei Wusheng's door was forcefully pushed open. No one but Lei Wushuang would act so rudely. "How can you sit still?" Looking at his brother who was leisurely drinking tea in the courtyard, Lei Wushuang's eyes immediately turned cold. Looking away from the battlefield, Lei Wusheng said, "What else?" Lei Wushuang said angrily, "Zi Chen wouldn't kill people in the city for no reason. They must be aggressive again. As an extreme core, shouldn't you do something at this time?" Lei Wusheng picked up the teacup next to him and poured a cup for his sister. He said, "This is a big matter. I can't do anything about it. Even if I go, what can I do?" He didn't even give face to the mayor and the commander. "Why would he give face to me?" Passing the teacup forward, Lei Wusheng said, "We can use this time to see Zi Chen's combat power. Speaking of which, I feel that this time, not only did his cultivation level increase, even the essence of his power seems to have changed." Lei Wushuang sat next to him angrily and gritted his teeth. "These damn people are really annoying." Lei Wusheng frowned slightly. His sister was too concerned about Zi Chen. This was not a good sign. This battle attracted the attention of many forces. The first to notice the abnormality was, of course, the mayor and the commander of the core city. At this moment, the two of them were playing chess in the room. They turned a deaf ear to what was happening outside. At this moment, Zi Chen had killed more than 30 law enforcers. As for Lei Yu, who gave out rewards, even more people died. However, these two people in power sat calmly and focused on playing chess. It seemed that it was more important to determine the winner here than to punish the rule-breaker outside. After a while, the commander, who placed a piece, finally broke the silence. Such a big thing has happened. Are you not going to do anything about it? The mayor continued to place a piece and said calmly, "You are the commander. The law enforcers are all under your command." His calm attitude represented his resolute intention. "I made a mistake last time. Allow me to repent first." At this point, the commander did not mention anything about the outside world. However, in the law enforcement team that he was in charge of, his trusted subordinates had not been touched. The mayor's residence was also very quiet. There was no sound of movement. In the sky above Lei, the battle was still going on. The level of the experts who came was getting higher and higher. Chapter 36-31. The battle above Lei was still going on, and the enforcers were dying one after another. Zichen displayed his invincible combat strength. With one person and one saber, no one could get close to him. He was determined to kill today. There were only corpses under his saber, and no one was injured. "Captain, are we going to attack?" In the distance, a small team of enforcers was standing there. There were 10 of them, and the captain was a 7-star, while the rest were 6 stars. Looking at the invincible Zichen, the 7-star captain's face was a little ugly, and he asked, "What did the higher-ups say?" His subordinate shook his head and said with a depressed face, "No news." "What about the commander and the city lord?" The 7-star Holy Spirit frowned and said, "Such a big thing happened, and they didn't say anything. It is said that they are not in the city, and they left the city a few days ago." Looking at the battle in front of him, the 7-star Holy Spirit gritted his teeth and said with a gloomy face, "Let's not care about them for now. The thief is doing evil in the city, and we, as enforcers, must uphold justice. It's time for us to contribute to the Holy Thunder Clan, even if it means death." The few 6-star Holy Spirits following him nodded one after another, and their eyes were fearless. "Let's go." The 7-star Holy Spirit suddenly waved his hand, and then rushed towards Zichen. Looking at the flashing saber light in front of him, the 7-star Holy Spirit's eyes were twitching. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. "Thief, how dare you behave so atrociously in the core city? Today, I must take you down and uphold the justice of the Holy Thunder Clan." Although he was afraid, he had a reason to take action, so he shouted from afar, "Where are the enforcers? It's time to uphold the justice of the Holy Thunder Clan. Kill." The few Holy Spirits following him all had murderous intent surging in their eyes. They were very nervous, and their hearts were beating violently. They spoke righteously, but the Holy Spirits in the city did not participate. They were all spectators. This was because the enforcers were very powerful, and there were many experts among them. There was no need for them to take action. Perhaps there was a reason why those experts did not appear. The flashing saber light in front of him disappeared. Zichen turned around and looked at the enforcers. In his hand, the demonic saber was unsheathed again. Wang. The saber arc moved forward and swept past the leading 7-star Saint Spirit. Even though his opponent had put up a defense in time, he still couldn't block Zichen's attack. In the blink of an eye, this team was annihilated just like the previous teams. The death toll was still increasing. The number of corpses on the ground had already exceeded 100. Grace's mind was blank and she was at a loss. She didn't dare to imagine how this matter would end. Could it be that they were going to continue killing endlessly, until one side is completely wiped out? Suddenly, a tyrannical aura came from the core where Lei was. This aura surpassed that of a 7-star. He was an 8-star expert. While Zichen could easily slaughter a 7-star Holy Spirit, an 8-star Holy Spirit had finally appeared. An existence of this level was rarely seen. When the other party appeared, there were no more law enforcers around, and no one from the Thunder Defense Department came forward. The beautiful woman who had long since retreated into the crowd revealed a mocking smile. The fish had already taken the bait, and the next step was to reel in the net. Once she succeeded, the benefits she would reap would be unimaginably great. The 8-star Holy Spirit was a middle-aged man. After he appeared, he didn't attack immediately. Instead, he looked at Zichen and said indifferently, Enough, you've gone too far this time. Glancing at the retreating crowd, Zichen said coldly, "It seems that you're the mastermind behind this. Once I kill you, this farce will be over." The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes, revealing infinite killing intent in them. There were exclamations in the crowd. This was because many people recognized the 8-star Holy Spirit. He was known as the youngest 8-star Holy Spirit in the Thunder Defense Department, and his name was Lei Heng. He was a core disciple and deeply trusted by the Thunder Defense Department. He was in charge of a great deal of power. It was said that it wouldn't be difficult for him to advance to a 9-star in this lifetime. Grace looked at Lei Heng with a complicated expression. He was a genius in the Thunder Defense Department, and many female cultivators admired him in private. Lei Heng had always given people a gentle and elegant feeling. She didn't expect him to appear today, and obviously, he didn't come here to reason as usual. Those who violate the rules must die. Lei Heng's voice was cold. Obviously, he had determined that Zichen was guilty. Grace's heart was suddenly filled with disappointment. The once flawless figure had completely collapsed. Die. Then let's see who dies first. Zichen smiled coldly and waved his hand. A black light lingered in front of him, and 36 black holy talismans appeared in front of him. They were the Ghost Spirit Holy Talismans. As Zichen's level increased, these Ghost Spirit Holy Talismans had obviously changed. The power contained in each of them had increased by a lot, and the total number had been reduced to 36. Pa. The Ghost Spirit Holy Talismans instantly exploded, and 36 ghost spirits appeared. These ghost spirits were obviously bigger than before. They were the size of a human head and flickered with black light. The 36 ghost spirits didn't immediately rush forward. Instead, they floated above Zichen's head. Zichen released an aura around him. The power of the ancient thunder flame swept through this part of the world. In an instant, everyone felt a strong pressure. The power of the holy thunder in their bodies seemed to have become rusty, as if they had met their natural enemy or seen a high and mighty king. Sensing Zichen's aura, Lei Heng's expression changed. Even though he was in the 8-star realm, the power of the holy thunder in his body was still affected. After releasing his aura, Zichen put away the demonic saber. He rushed forward. There was a sharp whistling sound in the air, and the surrounding space began to distort. The power of the holy bone was stimulated by him. The power of the ancient thunder flame surrounded his fist. He punched out. Countless golden lights burst out, as if a golden thunder sun. A cold shout rang out. Thunder explosion. He attacked with full force, without any intention of holding back. The original 36 ghost spirits were now flying in the sky, approaching this place. Reckless fool, do you really think you're invincible? Lei Heng's eyes flashed with killing intent, and a strong Holy Spirit aura surged out from his body. He stretched out his palm and slapped forward. Boom! The sky suddenly shook, as if it was about to be shattered by the palm. Thunder spiral force. As the cold voice sounded, the fist and the palm met. In an instant, Zichen felt a sharp aura, like a spinning top, and the tip was coming toward his fist, as if it was going to crush his fist. This kind of power was rare, and Zichen was a little surprised, but that was it. Zichen snorted coldly, and the power of the ancient thunder flame burst out. In an instant, countless thunder flames drowned Lei Heng, and destroyed his opponent's fist force. With a loud bang, Lei Heng's body was wrapped in the ancient thunder flame and flew backward. Whoosh! The 36 ghost spirits behind Zichen instantly disappeared into the other party's sea of consciousness. P.S. 12, noon, 6 o'clock p.m., 2 updates on time. Chapter 36-32. The power of the ancient thunder flame erupted and Lei Heng was sent flying. He was still enveloped by the ancient thunder flame. The energy was extremely terrifying. Even though he was 2 levels higher than Zichen, he still could not suppress it. For the first time, a hint of panic appeared on Lei Heng's face. He was a core disciple and a genius. In Lei Yu, he had been nurtured with great effort. It was only a matter of time before he reached the 9-star level. However, he, who thought that he was extraordinary, had not expected to be suppressed by Zi Chen after exchanging just one move. One should know that Zi Chen was merely a 6-star saint spirit while he was a powerful 8-star saint spirit. Who would have thought that at this moment, his heart would suddenly feel a strong sense of danger, as if his life was being threatened? He was already alert. He immediately looked up and saw the black imps from before. They were spinning into a talisman array and flying toward him. The sense of danger was coming from them. In a hurry, a beam of energy flew out from his body. It turned into a light sword and slashed at the imps. Swoosh! The light sword passed through the imps without causing any harm. While he was still in shock, the imps quickly disappeared into his sea of consciousness. Zi Chen stood in the distance. His expression was still cold. It was his first time fighting an 8-star divine spirit, but he was not afraid at all. The strongest punch from before was not weaker than his opponent's. At the same time, he was very confident in the Ghost Spirit Holy Talisman. Seeing the Ghost Spirit Holy Talisman disappear into his opponent's sea of consciousness, he stood in the distance and did not continue to attack. Next, he would wait for his opponent to die. Or wait for a new enemy to arrive. Those who had retreated in the distance did not come forward again. At this time, they were staring at Lei Heng, who was standing still in the air. Their faces were filled with shock. In Lei Heng's sea of consciousness, the ghost spirit began to show its power. His soul was being destroyed. During this time, he had tried many methods but could not destroy them. Gradually, fear grew in his heart. Under such circumstances, he had no time to care about what was happening outside. If Zi Chen took the opportunity to attack, he would not be able to do anything. Fortunately, Zi Chen just stood there and watched, proud and arrogant. "I will kill you after I destroy them," Lei Heng swore to himself. Next, he began using all his soul power to destroy these ghost spirits. However, these ghost spirits were like gluttons. No matter how many of his attacks landed on them, they would be devoured in an instant. This caused his soul to become weaker and weaker, until it disappeared. Under the gazes of the crowd, Lei Heng stood motionless in the air. Zi Chen stood opposite him and did not continue to attack. However, after a short while, Lei Heng's aura weakened and disappeared bit by bit. Wang. The moment his soul dissipated, Lei Heng's corpse fell to the ground. The originally quiet surroundings instantly burst into an uproar. A famous 8-star saint spirit had died just like that. When he looked at Zi Chen again, all he could feel was shock. Indeed, he has become even stronger. Such combat strength is truly shocking. Lei Wusheng stood up and gazed into the distance, exclaiming, "Amazing, truly amazing. What's the use of saying that? Now that even the 8-star Holy Spirit is dead, how are we going to deal with this?" Lei Wusheng said unhappily. "Naturally, someone will come to clean up this mess." Lei Wusheng's lips curled into a smile. "It seems that their plan will fail again this time. How can you still smile? Look, there are a few more 8-star saint spirits from Lei Yu's side. They are determined to kill Zi Chen." Lei Wusheng's eyes were filled with anxiety. "Hurry up and think of a way." Lei Heng's death caused an uproar. However, following that, many powerful auras appeared. These auras were all 8-star saint spirits and were extremely violent. Lei Heng was the one they had focused on cultivating. It would not be a problem for him to advance to the 9-star level. However, at this time, he had lost his strongest physical body. Perhaps his mental state would also be affected. Such a loss naturally enraged them. Under such circumstances, if they chose to join forces, Zi Chen would definitely not be able to survive. Die. An 8-star saint spirit rushed forward and threw a punch at Zi Chen's chest. Zi Chen snorted coldly and clenched his fist in response. The power of the ancient thunder flame circled around his fist. The power of the saint bone was activated again. With a loud boom, a powerful wave extended from the sky. The two of them retreated. Following that, the second 8-star saint spirit arrived and slashed at Zi Chen with his sword. Buzz! Zi Chen turned around. The demonic saber was already in his hand. As the demonic saber was unsheathed, the saber arc went against the sky and blocked the incoming sword. Following that, Zichen's figure flashed and disappeared into thin air. Where he stood, a long spear pierced through the air, piercing through the void. Zichen kept retreating. During this time, the saint spirit flying daggers danced around him, and clanging sounds were constantly heard. Zichen retreated nearly 100 feet and blocked the attacks of the 8-star saint spirits. There was an uproar all around. When an 8-star saint spirit fought against a 6-star saint spirit, there was a gap between their realms. Unexpectedly, several 8-star saint spirits joined forces and still could not kill Zichen instantly. In the city lord's mansion, the city lord put down the chess piece in his hand and said, "It's time to show up. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble." The commander nodded. In the next moment, the two of them disappeared. The moment the two of them disappeared, the space above the core city began to distort rapidly. One formation after another appeared in the air. During this period of time, a powerful oppressive might filled the entire battlefield. Light appeared from the formation diagram and shot straight down like a pillar of light, hitting the bodies of the people on the battlefield. In the next moment, the surging lightning on everyone's body disappeared instantly. Their bodies were suspended in the air, motionless. Such an unforeseen event caused everyone to be stunned. Soon after, they seemed to have thought of something as their expressions became interesting. The person who could trigger the core city's formation must be the manager of the core city. The other party had finally made a move. How was Zichen going to deal with this? With a flash of light, two people appeared in the air. They were the city lord and the commander. The people standing around saluted the two of them. "What's going on?" The commander glanced at the corpses below one by one, and his face gradually became gloomy. "We just left for a while. Why did such a big thing happen?" He turned around and looked into the distance. There were many law enforcers there. At this moment, facing the commander's questioning gaze, they all lowered their heads. The commander obviously did not intend to force them to answer. He turned around again and said, "Who can give us an explanation? Why did this happen?" "Commander, City Lord, this scoundrel made a scene in Lei Yu's office and killed many of our people. He even dared to kill the law enforcers. He should be executed." Chapter 36-33. Lord, please punish the thief severely and uphold the rules of the Holy Thunder Clan. The middle-aged woman recounted everything that had happened in full detail. During this period, there were many fabrications and even more embellishments. It was nothing more than how wronged and passive they were, and how arrogant Zichen was. He even insinuated that the other party had a powerful backer. The city lord stood there without saying a word. The city was silent, and only the middle-aged woman was talking. "Nonsense, she's talking nonsense." At this moment, Grace's voice was heard. At this moment, her face was full of tears and she was extremely disappointed. She was disappointed in Lei Heng. She was also disappointed in Lei Yu. She didn't expect that the place she loved so much would become like this. "Shut up, the city lord is asking. Who are you to speak?" The middle-aged woman turned around and looked at Grace coldly. Her eyes were full of warning. Of course, this was not a threat to Grace, but to the Gra clan behind her. If Grace dared to say more, then the Gra clan would definitely be ruthlessly suppressed in the future. Zichen and those 8 stars were shrouded in the light. Their bodies were suspended in the air as if they were frozen. They couldn't say a word. He looked at the sad Grace and felt guilty, but there was more killing intent in his heart. His realm had improved very quickly, but he still felt that he was too weak. If his realm was high enough, who would dare to scheme against him? And his friends wouldn't be so sad. Grace glared at the middle-aged woman. She wasn't afraid of her threat. She wiped away her tears and said, "From today onwards, I'm officially leaving the Gra clan." As soon as these words came out, many people were stunned and looked at each other. Wasn't she talking about Zichen? What did it have to do with the Gra clan? The city lord and the commander were still calm. The middle-aged woman's eyes changed. She didn't expect this girl to be so stubborn. The cause of this matter is that Zichen came here to ask for his harvest in the immortal region. He didn't get it after a long time. Grace told him the whole story. Hearing Grace's words, the expressions of the surrounding holy spirits changed significantly. During these years, The immortal domain had been mentioned countless times. Even Zichen's fame was due to this place. It was well known that Zichen had made great contributions to the Holy Thunder clan, but after he colluded with the space pirates of the Death Prison and gave them the soul-gathering crystal lode, he became a sinner. However, now that Zichen had taken back the soul-amassing crystal mine, he was no longer considered a traitor. Furthermore, his contribution had become even greater. Under such circumstances, it was natural for him to obtain the resources that should have belonged to him. After listening to Grace's story, many people's eyes changed as they looked at this beautiful woman. It seemed like Lei you had some thoughts about that portion of resources. However, after thinking about it, Zichen's contribution was too great. Naturally, he would be rewarded more. These rewards would naturally make people jealous. In the crowd, the temperature suddenly dropped. The eyes of many holy spirits turned cold. Among these people, many of them had participated in the battle in the immortal domain back then. Some of them were originally with Zichen, while others were members of other teams. Whether or not they followed Zichen, they knew very well what everyone had experienced in the immortal region. There were countless dangers. Many people lost their strongest physical bodies because of it. Although they received many contributions, those contributions were exchanged with their lives. Zichen's contributions were even more so. But now, someone was stealing the contributions that they exchanged with their lives. Among them, there were some who had complained about the rewards. Perhaps they had already found the source of those complaints. Lei you had tampered with these contributions. Perhaps, he had secretly embezzled a lot of them. You're talking nonsense. It's obvious that you're resentful because you were relieved of your duties. That's why you brought people to make trouble. The beautiful woman said coldly. However, her changing expression showed that she was currently uneasy. Regarding this matter, we'll investigate it thoroughly. We'll never wrongly accuse anyone. More so, we won't let those who sacrificed their lives for the Holy Thunder clan suffer losses. The city lord, who had been silent, finally made the final decision. After hearing the city lord's words, the surrounding holy spirits with cold eyes became extremely agitated. Now, all involved parties, follow me. The city lord waved his hand. The frozen 8-star existences on the battlefield and Zichen all disappeared. Grace and the beautiful woman also disappeared. As for the scattered corpses, they were naturally dealt with by the enforcers. Some people noticed that the enforcers who came this time not only had a high cultivation level, but also a high status. However, none of them had appeared before. After the battlefield was cleaned up, the people who had yet to disperse began to discuss spiritedly. No matter whether Zichen was in the right or not, he had broken the rules and killed people. Moreover, he had killed a lot of people. He would definitely be punished. After knowing that something had happened to Grace, the Gila clan expressed different opinions and attitudes. The Lightning Manipulation Department was a special department. In order to send Grace there, they had used a lot of favors and connections. Now, before she could make a name for herself there, she was forcefully expelled. Moreover, she had completely offended the Lightning Manipulation Department because of Zichen. In this way, the Lightning Manipulation Department would definitely target the Gila clan. By then, the Gila clan would naturally be in a bad situation. Immediately, someone expressed that they would personally apologize to the Lightning Manipulation Department and then publicly announce that they had expelled Grace from the clan. For the sake of their immediate interests, many people agreed. However, at this moment, the elder of the Gila clan passed down a message. Everyone in the Gila clan was not allowed to leave the clan for the next few days. Before the matter was completely resolved, it would be more sincere to apologize to the Lightning Manipulation Department. Now was a rare opportunity for both sides to be on good terms. Unexpectedly, the elder gave such an order. Even though many people were unwilling, none of them dared to disobey the elder's order. Just when some people thought that the elder was going to personally deal with this matter, a servant girl saw that the elder was only staying in the room to drink tea and read a book. He did nothing else. Zichen's ruckus at the Lightning Manipulation Department seemed to be a matter between him and the Lightning Manipulation Department, but in fact, it had attracted many forces. While many forces were speculating about this matter and the punishment for Zi Chen, as the person involved, was drinking tea in the city lord's residence. That's right, drinking tea. Moreover, it was top-notch tea. Grace, who was sitting next to him, was still in disbelief as she watched the steam curl up from the teacup. After being brought back from outside, she and Zi Chen had been drinking tea here. No one had come to question them at all. House arrest did not happen. There was not even a guard outside the door. What exactly was going on? Did the city lord not need an explanation for such a big matter? Chapter 36-34. Since the establishment of the core city, no one had ever challenged the rules here, and such a massacre had never happened before. Zi Chen was the first to do so. Under such circumstances, there was naturally a need for an explanation. But as for what kind of explanation it was, no one knew yet. You're just drinking tea with peace of mind? Grace looked at the leisurely Zi Chen, but she couldn't relax. What else? Zi Chen picked up the teacup and said, "This is good tea from the city lord's mansion. Perhaps in this life, we will only have the chance to drink tea here once. Haven't you thought about the consequences?" Grace asked. What consequences? Zi Chen asked back. I'm in the right. What consequences do I have to bear? Execute me? But. Grace still couldn't feel at ease. Zi Chen said lightly, no buts. In fact, everything is very simple. Don't they want my contribution? This time, I killed people. At most, I'll give some compensation. This was the worst-case scenario that Zi Chen could see, because this was a trap set by Lei Yu, and the purpose was to get his contribution in the immortal realm. Although he killed people, Zi Chen absolutely couldn't give away all the contribution. At most, he would compensate those who died and a part of the losses. Compared to the contribution points he obtained this time, those losses were clearly very small. There must be an explanation for this matter. In the city lord's mansion, the city lord said indifferently. But he used the word must, which was enough to show the seriousness of the gaffe. The commander sitting next to him asked, "What do you plan to do?" The city lord said, "Perhaps, this is an opportunity." The commander hesitated slightly and said, "Is it appropriate?" The city lord looked at the commander. "Can you see a better opportunity in the future?" The commander shook his head. Although now was not the best time, this opportunity would definitely not come for many years in the future. After all, there was only one immortal realm. If you've made up your mind, then it's settled. But, the Lord. The commander was a little embarrassed. After all, this is a city under our control. Of course, we have the final say. I believe that the Lord will not be able to say anything. There was simply no need to find someone to ask. This matter was directly decided by the city lord and the commander, and they gave a verdict. The city lord stood up and said, "This is a rare opportunity for you. If you are serious, you will definitely be able to catch the big fish." After saying that, the city lord left the room. The commander then left. A day later, Zi Chen's case finally came to a conclusion. Lei Yu had embezzled Zi Chen's contribution points and deliberately angered Zi Chen, causing Zi Chen to make a big mistake. However, the circumstances were excusable. As such, a portion of the compensation was given to those who had suffered great losses. As for Zi Chen, in addition to compensating him, he was also stripped of his core disciple status. This was Zi Chen's punishment. When the news came out, it caused an uproar. Many people felt that the punishment was too light. After all, Zi Chen had killed so many people last time. At the same time, another piece of news came out. That was, the core city would thoroughly investigate the embezzlement of the immortal realm's contribution points. Compared to Zi Chen, this matter involved more people and received more attention. Because of the previous trip to the immortal realm, many people were dissatisfied with the final statistics. This was an opportunity to verify it. Only 2 days later, the latest news came. A big problem was found in the immortal realm's contribution points. Then, one after another, the leaders were implicated and removed from their positions. The first was the 8-star Lei Heng. He was the first to be removed from his position. Then, the 8-star Holy Spirits were removed from their positions one after another. At the same time, many low-level holy spirits were also removed from their positions. Just as everyone's attention fell on Lei Yu, the law enforcers under the commander's jurisdiction were also carrying out a purge. Of course, this purge was announced to the public that those people had lost their strongest physical bodies, so they were transferred from the front to behind the scenes. But only the people involved knew that they had been removed from their positions by the higher-ups. It could be said that after this incident, both the law enforcers and Lei Yu had undergone a great purge. Among the purged people, more than 80% were killed by Zi Chen last time. As for the remaining 20%, they were punished for various dereliction of duty after tracing the clues to the melon. During this period, too many families were implicated. As the person involved, Zi Chen had already returned to the Tianwu world. In fact, after drinking tea, he left. During this period, he did not see the city lord. The commander did not come to talk to him either. As for the punishment on him, he had only heard about it. The higher-ups had not officially announced it. Because Grace had been removed from her position and had threatened to leave the Gracie family, she followed Zi Chen back to the Tianwu world that day. In the next 2 days, she had been inquiring about the development of the situation. Her mood was very low, and she had been worried about her family. After hearing the news, she was puzzled. Especially when she was with Zi Chen, she had never seen Zi Chen being punished. Even his position as a core disciple had not been revoked in person. This kind of doubt lasted for 3 days. On the 4th day, people from the core city came, but they were not looking for Zi Chen. Instead, they were looking for Grace. They were people from Lei Yu, who had come to bring her back to resume her position. She had even been promoted by 2 levels. Just as Grace was overjoyed, she heard the news that Lei Heng had been removed from his position by Lei Yu. When she re-entered Lei Yu, she saw Lei Heng leave. The two of them had not interacted before. She was just a secret admirer, and they would not interact in the future. Because ever since the last incident, Grace was full of disappointment in Lei Heng, a dazzling genius. After arriving at Lei Yu, she saw an old man. The old man was a legend of Lei Yu. He had been in seclusion for many years and had never thought that he would come out again. He gave Grace great power, which made her feel flattered. Next, she followed beside the old man and witnessed a change in Lei Yu's position. After a thorough investigation, some people in Lei Yu had embezzled an astronomical number of resources over the years. After an entire month of cleansing, Lei Yu's office looked brand new. At the same time, there were many new faces here. Compared to the once lifeless Lei Yu, the new generation was full of vitality. On the day that the situation stabilized, Grace personally brought back the collected resources and sent them to the holy spirits killed by Zi Chen. These were said to be Zi Chen's compensation, but in fact, Lei Yu was responsible for it. And the source of these resources was actually collected from them. The compensation had been paid, and the storm was over. Chapter 36-35. The core city was in turmoil, and the Thunder Imperial Agency was being purged. The law enforcers also began to be replaced one after another, which made many families anxious. Especially the Thunder Imperial Agency, which was the most profitable place in the core area. Many forces were thinking of ways to place their own people there, and the price they paid was not small. This time, as many as half of the people were purged. Compared to those factions that were in a state of panic, the Gra family was considered the biggest winner this time. After this incident, Grace's position rose again and again, and she was already a target that the Lightning Imperial Office would focus on nurturing. Those family members who originally had complaints shut their mouths and did not mention the proposal that day. At the same time, they praised their ancestors' foresight. Before the turmoil was over, Zi Chen had been staying in the Tianwu world, drinking tea in his room. It was the tea leaves that Lei Zhenghong had given him, and he still had a lot of them. What happened in the outside world had nothing to do with him. Of course, he still knew what had happened. After Jila was promoted, she came back once and told him about the current situation. Of course, she also made it clear that all the compensation for his punishment would be borne by the Thunder Imperial Agency. As for Zi Chen's contribution, it would be distributed to him after the situation stabilized. After that, Jila said goodbye and left, but before she left, she thanked Zi Chen. She had always been ordinary in the Thunder Imperial Agency, but this time, she was able to be put in an important position because of Zi Chen. Just after Jila left, another person came to the core city. It was an old man that Zi Chen had never seen before. The old man said directly that he wanted Zi Chen to hand over the core token. Obviously, it was announced that Zi Chen had lost the qualification to be a core disciple, and the following rewards would not be issued. Zi Chen had no objection to this and directly handed over the token. As for the fact that others could not enter the core city, it would not happen to Zi Chen, because he had another identity. Saint Talisman Master. This identity allowed him to enter the core city at will. The solemn old man put away the core token and revealed a kind smile. He looked at Zi Chen and said, "Little guy, congratulations." Zi Chen was slightly taken aback. "You've already taken the token, so why are you still congratulating me? Congratulating me for finally not being a core disciple anymore?" Zi Chen didn't like this guy anymore. The old man withdrew his smile and said, "From today onwards, you will officially take part in the core assessment." After saying that, light flashed from the old man's hand, and another token appeared. This token was different from the previous one. Its color was deeper, and there was a complicated lightning pattern engraved on it. "This is the token for the core disciple exam. Take it." The old man put the token in Zi Chen's hand and turned to leave. "Little guy, we have high hopes for you. Don't disappoint us like that brat from the Lei Zheng family." Zi Chen lowered his head and looked at the token in his hand. He was a little confused. The core disciple was the most mysterious existence in the Holy Thunder clan. So far, Zi Chen had seen countless core disciples, but he had only seen 2 core disciples. During that time, because of his conflict with Lei Zheng Hongtian, he knew how difficult it was to become a core disciple. In the past, the 9 of them had gone through many years of assessment, but they were finally eliminated at the last step. Now, this opportunity had fallen on him. Zi Chen could not believe it. But what was the content of the assessment? It seemed that no one had told him. The situation in the core city was turbulent, but the outside world was quiet. Tianwu world was becoming more and more prosperous. More forces and businesses began to settle in this place. The turbulent situation finally stabilized. Leisure time was over, and Zi Chen decided to go to the Talisman Hall. Just as he walked out of the door, he saw Jolina rushing toward him with a rare nervous expression. Something happened? Zi Chen frowned slightly. "Let's go back to the room first." Jolina pulled Zi Chen back into the room. After the door was closed, Jolina could not wait to ask, "The news is true, right?" "What news?" Zi Chen was stunned. He had not heard any news recently. Jolina was so excited that her face was a little red. She said anxiously again, "The core disciple. There are rumors that you are about to participate in the core disciple assessment. This is true, isn't it?" A hint of doubt flashed in Zi Chen's eyes. This kind of thing was only known to him and the old man. He did not tell anyone during that time. How did Jolina know? Looking at Zi Chen's changing expression, Jolina said excitedly, "So, all of this is true?" Zi Chen did not know why she was so excited. He nodded and said, "Yes, but I still don't know what the assessment is. And in the end, can I?" Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Xiaolina. "Why didn't you tell me about such a big thing earlier?" She complained, "I was wondering why there were always caravans coming to Tianwu World these days. And behind those caravans were the shadows of great powers. Do you know how big our losses were these days?" Jolina stepped forward and pinched Zi Chen's face with both hands. She pulled hard. "My good lord, if there are such things in the future, don't hide it. This is very important for our development." Before Zi Chen could come back to his senses, Jolina left again. In the Holy Thunder clan, core disciples had their own territory and rarely came to the outside world. It was not easy for people in the outside world to see a core disciple. What about the core disciple? He was extremely mysterious, and many core disciples had never seen him before. Now that the various forces had heard of this news, they would naturally come over as soon as possible. After all, it was good to be under a big tree. If Chen really became an extreme core, then his world would definitely rise. The sooner he came here, the more benefits he would reap. Looking at the door that was still shaking, Chen, who had finger marks on his face, shook his head. Jolena was not very interested in cultivation, but she was very fond of management. Jolena had contributed a lot to the Tianwu world's development. Thank you. Chen walked out of the room again and left the Tianwu world. He returned to the core city. It was still the same as before, and there was no sign of the turmoil that had happened not long ago. However, along the way, many people looked at him with awe and flattery in their eyes. Chen did not look for grace. Instead, he went straight to the Talisman Hall. This time, he wanted to discuss something with the Hall Master. It was about the Holy Thunder Golden Talisman token. He decided to participate in the assessment and obtain the second part of the Dark Ghost Devouring Soul technique. In the Talisman Hall, Holy Talisman Masters were going in and out. They looked busy. Chen's arrival surprised the Hall Master, who personally went out to welcome him. Chapter 36-36. Looking at the Saint Talisman Masters bustling in and out, Chen asked in puzzlement, "Did something happen?" "Something did happen, but it's a good thing." A smile appeared on Fu Laro's aged face. "What's the good thing?" Chen asked curiously. "Something strange has happened in the depths of the Talisman Forest, and it has been going on for several months. We have checked the ancient records and concluded that the Saint Talisman realm is about to open." Fu Laro said excitedly, "Do you know that the Saint Talisman realm hasn't opened for several 100,000 years? In the Talisman Hall, only the most mysterious Hall Master has experienced it. Even I have never seen it before. According to the ancient records, the opportunities in the Saint Talisman realm far exceed the Talisman Forest. There are various lost Saint Talisman arts and soul cultivation techniques." Chen had never heard of the Saint Talisman realm, but judging from Fu Laro's excited expression, it was clearly an excellent place. This made Chen somewhat hesitant. Should he participate in the assessment or try his luck in the Saint Talisman realm? He had already seen the effects of the Saint Talisman arts. The more he grasped, the stronger he would be. Moreover, it was different from his own energy. To a Saint Talisman Master, as long as he had a Saint Talisman, it meant that he would have an endless supply of battle strength. "Why did you come to the Talisman Hall today?" Fu Laro asked when he saw Chen's fluctuating expression. Chen muttered to himself for a moment before revealing his intentions. "Oh, Saint Lightning Golden Talisman? Can you show it to me?" Fu Laro was somewhat curious when he heard this. Chen didn't hesitate and took out the Saint Lightning Golden Talisman on the spot. In an instant, rays of light erupted and dyed the entire hall gold. At the same time, waves of intense fluctuations emerged from the sky above the Talisman Hall like ripples that constantly surged. The Saint Talisman Masters who were busy going in and out stopped and turned their heads to look at Chen and the dazzling golden talisman in his hand. There's movement again." An old voice suddenly rang out from the void. It sounded very agitated. "The Holy Talisman realm is showing signs of opening." Fu Laro looked at the command medallion in Chen's hand. His eyes shone with a dazzling golden light, and he was momentarily absent-minded. Hearing the old voice, he came back to his senses and said to Chen, "Put it away first." Hearing this, Chen put away the token. The golden light in the hall disappeared, and the ripples in the air also dissipated. "Hey, it's gone." "Why is it gone?" The old voice from before sounded again in the void, sounding very puzzled and full of regret. Fu Laro nodded and exclaimed, "So that's how it is. What's going on?" Chen asked in bewilderment. However, he faintly felt that the Holy Talisman realm had something to do with this token. "The key to the Sage Talisman realm is in your hands." Fu Laro shook his head and said, "No wonder the entrance to the Holy Talisman realm has been showing signs of opening, but the entrance has yet to appear. So it turns out that the key is in your hands." Swish tilde at this moment, a beam of light suddenly appeared beside Chen. It was an old man who was even older than Fu Laro. He stared at the golden talisman token in Chen's hand and anxiously asked, "Where did you obtain this command medallion?" In the Talisman Forest. Zichen didn't hide anything and told the old man how he obtained the command medallion. Right now, because they were all in the Great Hall, the other Holy Talisman Masters could clearly hear the conversation between the two of them. For a moment, the gazes everyone looked at Zichen with changed. They already knew about the news of the Holy Talisman realm and also knew what kind of opportunities there would be. At that time, they were incomparably excited. Sadly, several months had passed and the entrance still hadn't appeared. It was inevitable that they would feel anxious. Right now, the key to the entrance was in Zichen's hands. This indicated that the door to the Holy Talisman realm could be opened at any time. It was only a matter of time before they obtained the opportunity. Their emotions became excited again. The purpose of Zichen's visit today was to ask about the Holy Lightning Golden Talisman token. He didn't expect that he would find out about its use as soon as he arrived. What do you plan to do next? Fu Laro asked. The key was Zichen's, so he naturally had the final say. Zichen thought for a moment and said, I'll have to wait for some time. Today, he only came to take a look and not to enter immediately. After all, Zichen still hadn't obtained the resources in the immortal realms. Fu Laro nodded and didn't insist on this matter. In any case, they had already waited for several months. In fact, if they traced back, it would be even longer. They could make use of this period of time to make more preparations. After knowing the use of the talisman token, Zichen bade farewell and left. During this time, he went to look for Grace and asked when the resources would be distributed. At the same time, he also told Grace that he would be leaving soon. Grace indicated to Zichen that there was no need to be anxious. The Holy Lightning Palace had just stabilized and they were already dealing with this matter. 3 days later, a portion of the resources were distributed. Zichen handed all of these resources to Jolina. She had her own plans for the development of the Tianwu world. The follow-up resources would also be handed over to Jolina. The news about the opening of the Holy Talisman realm had already spread in the circle of Holy Talisman Masters and caused quite a stir. This directly led to the price of various materials used by Holy Talisman Masters in the Holy Thunder Clan to increase by nearly 30%. High-grade talisman brushes, talisman papers, and Holy Talisman arts were also fought over. This time, they had waited for hundreds of thousands of years. No one knew when the next opening would be. This was a rare opportunity and no one was willing to miss it. In the core talisman hall, there were people coming and going every day. Everyone was making all kinds of preparations. Before going in, everyone was arming themselves. As the person in charge of the key, Zichen was in the Tianwu world, dealing with some trivial matters and making the final arrangements. This was an opportunity for Holy Talisman Masters. Only Holy Talisman Masters could enter. Leilan would still be guarding the Tianwu world. After the resources of the soul-gathering crystal mine are distributed, arrange for the caravans to send a portion of them to everyone. Zichen gave the final instructions. The resources of the soul-gathering crystal mine were the largest portion. Zichen wanted to send some to Su Mengyaro, Tyrant, and the others. On the path of cultivation, resources were indispensable. Next, Zichen went to the core city again. This time, he went to look for Lei Wusheng. He didn't know when he would be able to return from the Holy Talisman realm, so he needed to ask Lei Wusheng to help the Tianwu continent when necessary. After Lei Wusheng patted his chest and said that there would be no problem, Zichen was relieved. He held the Holy Lightning Gold Talisman token and walked into the Talisman Hall. Chapter 36-37. After settling everything, Zichen walked towards the Talisman Hall. Following his arrival, the eyes of many Saint Talisman Masters lit up. But soon after, they felt anxious and uneasy in their hearts. Because Zichen's arrival meant that the Holy Talisman realm would officially open. This made many Saint Talisman Masters who weren't prepared yet feel apprehensive. Fu Laro was in the Talisman Hall. When he saw Zichen, he smiled and went up to him. "Are you ready?" Zichen shrugged and said, "Didn't you say that there's everything inside? What else do I need to prepare?" For the past few days, Zichen had been dealing with trivial matters and didn't have the time to prepare. When he heard that the price of Saint Talisman Master materials had increased, he only shook his head and smiled. He also rejected Jolena's suggestion to purchase materials in advance. "You're bold, aren't you?" Fu Laro smiled. Following that, Zichen heard a voice transmission from Fu Laro. "Little fellow, follow me. I left something for you." Zichen's expression didn't change. He didn't say anything and followed Fu Laro into the side hall. Many Saint Talisman masters saw this scene. But clearly, they thought that the two of them were going to discuss the opening of the Holy Talisman realm. After entering the side hall, Fu Laro closed the door and indicated for Zichen to sit down. The opening of the Holy Talisman realm this time concerns the future of the Tao of Saint Talismans. Don't be careless. Fu Laro looked at Zichen and said seriously, "This time, I've prepared some people for you. They will cooperate with you when they enter." Zichen asked in astonishment, "Fu Laro, you're not going in?" Fu Laro shook his head. "There's a restriction on my cultivation level. The possibility of me not being able to enter is very high. Even if I can enter, I won't abandon this place and enter the Holy Talisman realm. Since the Hall Lord wasn't here, this place needed Fu Laro to hold down the fort. The sacred Talisman realm is extremely vast and mysterious. No one knows what they will encounter after entering. Hence, you have to be extremely careful." Fu Laro reminded, because the opening of the Holy Talisman realm this time is of the utmost importance, the requirements for becoming a Holy Talisman Master will be much more relaxed. Zichen understood what Fu Laro meant. What he meant was that practically all sacred symbol masters who could enter had the right to enter. Of course, the people from the Lei Zheng family, as well as those who had a grudge with Zichen, were all involved. As one of the most famous forces in the Holy Thunder clan, they naturally had their own Saint Talisman masters. Moreover, there was a high possibility that those people would take this opportunity to attack him. No matter what, the Holy Talisman realm was opened because of you. Furthermore, we have no way of stopping your enemies outside. Thus, after much consideration, we have decided to give you this item as compensation." A black disc appeared in Fu Laro's hand. There was a circular hole in the middle of the disc. The disc emitted an ancient aura and contained an extremely powerful soul fluctuation. "What is this?" Zichen asked curiously. Fu Laro shook his head and said, "I don't know. The Hall Lord brought it out from the Holy Talisman realm and it has been there for a long time. Perhaps it will be of use to you now that the Holy Talisman realm is reopening." Zichen took the black disc and examined it carefully. The disc was as smooth as a mirror. Other than the powerful soul fluctuation, there was nothing strange about it. There weren't even any diagrams. Fu Laro patted Zichen's shoulder and said, "Keep it. It might be useful." Zichen nodded and kept the black disc. "Do you need me to prepare some Holy Talisman arts for you?" Fu Laro asked again. Zichen shook his head and said, "No need. Moreover, it's too late." Following which, the two of them walked out of the room and arrived at the main hall. Fu Laro transmitted a message and indicated for all the Holy Talisman masters to gather. An old man appeared beside Zichen. The old man patted his shoulder and in the next moment, the two of them disappeared at the same time. The old man brought Zichen to another space. This place was filled with distorted space-time. Occasionally, one could see through the distorted space-time and see the things that appeared in this space. This is a talisman forest. When he saw the large number of Saint Talismans in front of him, Zichen was surprised. He had been to the talisman forest before and his soul had improved greatly there. The old man nodded and said, "That's right, it's a talisman forest. The entrance to the Holy Talisman realm is here." Looking at the talisman forest, Zichen asked doubtfully, "Are we going to open it now?" The old man nodded and said, "In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, we have decided to let you enter first." Clearly, they were worried that Zichen would encounter trouble from the outside world. Therefore, they separated the group first. Zichen had no objections and immediately took out the Holy Lightning Gold Talisman token. Golden light shone once again, illuminating this place. This distorted space seemed to be attracted by some kind of power and gradually stabilized. The originally blurry talisman forest was becoming clearer, as if it was only separated by a mirror. Wang. The talisman trembled slightly and left Zichen's hand and flew forward. This space was completely illuminated and the distorted space returned to normal. The original instability of this place immediately returned to normal. Suddenly, a ray of light flew out from the talisman. That ray of light was like a sharp sword, golden and resplendent. It forcefully cut open this space and connected to the talisman forest that Zichen had been to before. Following that, the ray of light pierced through the talisman forest and extended to an unfamiliar place. The passage was pitch black and nothing could be seen at the end. The ray of light from the talisman was no longer so dazzling. The pitch-black passage also became incomparably stable. It opened just like that. Zichen was a little surprised. The old man said, "There is an extremely different aura at the end of the passage. It should be the holy talisman realm." Zichen took a deep breath and walked towards the pitch-black passage. This place was related to the follow-up of his dark ghost devouring soul technique. No matter what was ahead, he had to go and take a look. Zichen disappeared into the pitch-black passage. The old man was still guarding this place. As for the Talisman Palace, many holy talisman masters who had rushed over after hearing the news had already gathered. They had not entered yet. While the old man waited for time to pass, he also silently observed the talisman. On the surface, there seemed to be no changes, but through his spiritual perception, he could sense that the spiritual aura within the talisman was fading away. Once the energy within the talisman was depleted, it was obvious that the talisman would disappear and the passage would close. If he estimated the time, it would last for about 10 days. Although he knew that the talisman could not be preserved forever, the old man still felt very regretful after coming to this conclusion. He did not know how long it would take for the holy talisman realm to open again. This wait lasted for 2 days. Chapter 36-39. Walking out of the dark passage, Zichen felt a strong pressure fall on him. Facing this force, he couldn't move at all. It was as if he had been fixed in place. This situation was very similar to when he was in the core city. The city took the initiative to use the city's array to fix him and those 8-star saint spirits in the air. What is going on? Zichen's eyes darted around. Facing such a huge pressure, he could only move his eyes. "Didn't you say you were here to take the test?" Boundless pressure fell on Zichen's body, causing him to be unable to move at all. He was here to take the test. He couldn't stay in this place forever. Buzz. Light began to shine around his body. He had activated his powerful physical strength. The saint bone in his body was activated. The pressure on him suddenly weakened. His body became lighter. He was no longer afraid of the pressure around him. He could move freely. He took a step forward. He took a few steps. It was extremely easy. It was as if the previous pressure was just an illusion. Suddenly, Zichen saw something strange behind him from the corner of his eye. He turned around and looked ahead. The look in his eyes changed little by little. There was a person standing in front of him. To be precise, that person was himself. He stood there motionless, as if he had been fixed in place. After confirming that it was not an illusion, Zichen was dumbfounded. Why were there 2 of him? And the one in front of him looked very sluggish. It was like an empty shell with only skin. He looked down at himself. It was still the same body. His hands and feet were very agile. So was his brain. But what was going on with this Zichen in front of him? At this moment, Zichen was surprised to find that he had lost his strength. The ancient thunder flame power in his abdomen had disappeared. This was just a body with the power of the physical body. Looking forward again, Zichen saw that there was a flame burning in the heart of the other him. It was the ancient thunder flame. He was completely stunned. He didn't know what to do. Why did this happen all of a sudden? Just as Zichen was in a daze, another pressure suddenly descended from the sky, enveloping his body. Just like before, facing this pressure, Zichen's body couldn't move at all. His eyes were still moving. What was happening in front of him was very strange. Of course, he wouldn't just sit there and wait for his death, so he struggled again. This time, after using all his strength, his whole body relaxed again. Then, he proceeded smoothly. Behind him, there was another person left. That person was also himself. "It's my real body." After seeing this, Zichen cried out in alarm. Right now, he was only left with his soul. His physical body and strength were both frozen in place. This scene was very similar to the scene when he had entered the Talisman Forest trial. After entering the Talisman Forest, he could only use his soul power. He couldn't use his physical body or energy. But at that time, his physical body was in the outside world, guarded by Fu Lao. However, right now, both his physical body and strength were frozen in their original forms. What was going on? Moreover, he was the first one to come here. Would the people who came after him be like him? What if at that time, someone suddenly attacked his physical body? Such an unforeseen event caused Zichen to feel somewhat anxious. Zichen, who originally had great confidence and expectations for this test, clearly felt his heart turn cold by quite a bit. He stood in place with a worried frown. Who would have thought that before he even took the trial, there would be such a big problem in front of him? After standing in place for a full incense stick's worth of time, Zichen could move freely without any pressure on his body. But the problem now was that once he left this place, what would happen to his physical body and energy? He tried to go back, but of course, he wouldn't succeed. Before he could find another way, a powerful force suddenly descended from the sky. Like a tornado, it swept through his body and took him away from this place. He could only watch as the two figures of himself became smaller and smaller, and finally became two black dots. The tornado disappeared, and Zichen stabilized his body. At this moment, he was feeling very depressed. His soul had been forcefully taken away, and he didn't know what would happen to his physical body. Looking up ahead, he saw towering trees. The trunks of these trees were so thick that it would take several people to wrap their arms around them. The exposed tree roots were like coiling dragons. Dense soul energy surged out. Feeling this soul aura, Zichen took a deep breath, and his previous uneasiness faded a little. This place was indeed rich in soul strength. This was perhaps the greatest comfort to him. The soul strength entered his body through his breath. Zichen felt incomparably carefree, and his mind was immediately shaken. This was how the trial should be. He had great reason to believe that this place had many holy talisman arts, as well as various resources that could strengthen the soul realm. But who knew that just as the soul strength from the outside world completely entered his body, another pressure would descend from the sky, landing on Zichen's body. This pressure contained a powerful repulsive force. Zichen was very familiar with this feeling. It was like an existence that was not welcomed by the rules of a world. Or rather, an existence that was outside of the rules of a world had entered, so it was rejected by the rules. Clearly feeling this repulsive force, Zichen's previous fluke was gone. Facing the powerful repulsive force of the rules, at the very least, he would be seriously injured, and at the very worst, his soul might be directly destroyed. What's going on? Zichen raised his head with difficulty. Looking at the dense leaves above his head, he felt a little regretful. If he had known that this would happen, he wouldn't have listened to that voice. What *T trial? It was a complete lie. First, his physical body and energy were forcefully left behind, and he didn't know if they were still alive. Then, his soul came here and was rejected by the rules. This could lead to death. If he really died here, Zichen couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't be resurrected in the Tianwu world. One had to know that in this world, there was a secret technique that could directly destroy all souls. The repulsive force of the rules was getting stronger and stronger. He had a splitting headache. Zichen felt as if his body could explode at any time. Zichen complained incessantly. He felt that he was really unlucky today. If he couldn't withstand this repulsive force, he would be completely finished. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a tyrannical aura suddenly appeared in front of him. The fallen leaves in the forest began to flutter, flapping against each other, creating a rustling sound. A black exotic beast walked out from the front. It was 3 meters tall, with black fur all over its body. Its eyes were as black as gems as it slowly walked forward. Its eyes were bright and looked harmless, but when it was less than 6 meters away from Zichen, its eyes suddenly revealed a cruel look. It leaped up, and the distance of 6 meters was instantly covered. Chapter 3640. If Zichen could speak at this moment, he would definitely curse out loud. He would curse the old man who gave him the Holy Thunder Golden Talisman back then. T test, T soul devouring technique. It was all a lie. He was rejected by the rules here, and his body could not move at all. Now, he encountered a ferocious beast. This was a dead end. Under such circumstances, who could pass the test? This black beast was very cunning, and he could see its bloody mouth open. He believed that in the next moment, it would bite off his head. He was rejected by the rules here, but this beast was not. Just as Zichen was in despair and waiting to resign himself to fate, he saw the black beast suddenly floating in front of him. Its sharp teeth were almost touching his delicate cheek. Zichen had already felt the scalding aura and was looking up at him. But everything suddenly froze, as if time had stopped. Of course, time could not stop, but the black beast's body paused for a moment. A black rope suddenly flew out of the forest and wrapped around its hind leg like a snake. Then, the rope was straightened, and the black beast's body was suspended in the air for a moment. In the next moment, the black beast was sent flying. Zichen saw a figure flying in the sky. It was a woman, wearing very revealing clothes. She only covered the necessary parts. Her lower abdomen was flat, without a trace of fat, and her skin was a healthy bronze color. Her long hair draped over her shoulders, and her face was beautiful. Together with her unique skin color, she had a strange beauty. In her hand, she held a black rope tightly, and the other end of the rope was wrapped around the black beast's leg. Zichen's eyes widened as if he saw a fairy descending to the mortal world. Whoosh! The barefoot woman landed silently. She glanced at Zichen, then immediately turned around and stared ahead. Bang! The black beast smashed into a big tree. The tree that needed several people to hug began to shake violently, and countless leaves fell from the sky. Whoosh! 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 Then, 3 more people appeared. They were like savages in the forest. A black rope flew out of each of their palms and flew toward the black beast. In an instant, the black beast was tightly bound by 3 ropes. The black beast stood up, and the rope immediately went taut. The 3 of them tried their best to hold onto the rope, but the pressure was increasing. The woman standing in front of Zichen murmured as if she was chanting some kind of incantation. Black light flowed out of her palm. With a tap of her foot, she gracefully floated forward like a piece of cotton. Then, she pressed her palm toward the black beast's glabella. As if it had sensed danger, the black beast opened its mouth and let out a roar. In an instant, it was as if a spiritual storm had suddenly appeared, causing the surrounding space to instantly become chaotic. The ropes wrapped around the black beast instantly shattered, turning into countless rays of light that dissipated into the air. Following that, the black light in the woman's palm also disappeared. After losing the black light, she slapped the black beast's head powerlessly. She was sent flying back dozens of feet before landing at Zichen's feet. Zichen stared blankly at the woman who had just saved his life. He coughed out a mouthful of blood. Then, ignoring his own injuries, he flipped over and stared ahead cautiously. The black beast did not continue to fight. Instead, it turned around and fled. Damn it, we failed again. Among the 3, there was a young man. He looked at the black beast that was fleeing and punched the ground with his fist. His eyes were filled with unwillingness. The other 2 men, who were slightly older, also had looks of regret on their faces. The woman reached out to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her aura was obviously much weaker, and there was a touch of guilt on her pretty face. Shan Ya, you acted too early. Didn't we have an agreement? Why did you change the original plan? The young man stood up and looked at the woman named Shan Ya with dissatisfaction. The soul-devouring beast will eat him. Shan Ya said, we can't just leave him to die. The young man walked forward and said with disappointment, you also know that it is a soul-devouring beast. The young man pointed at the motionless Zichen and said, look at his silly appearance. His soul has long been devoured by the soul-devouring beast. Right now, he is only a shell. He is an idiot who can't think. What's the point of saving him? Shan Yue looked back at Zi Chen. Zi Chen also looked at her. Right now, he was fighting against the rules. The indescribable pain in his soul caused his face to twitch constantly. If saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth, he would be a real idiot. But it is still a life, Shan Yue said. This idiot's life is a life. What about our lives? The young man said angrily, we have not gained anything for many days. If this continues, everyone will starve to death. Shan Yue lowered her head. Perhaps because she knew she was in the wrong, she did not refute. Although the other two did not say any harsh words to reprimand Shan Yue, their faces were filled with disappointment. The young man looked at Zi Chen and said, "You idiot, why did you have to appear on our hunting route? Why didn't you die earlier?" Zi Chen could not move and the corner of his mouth twitched. This made the young man even angrier. He reached out and patted Zi Chen's head and said angrily, "You idiot, not only did you lose your soul, you also got us into trouble. If it wasn't for you this time, we could have hunted a soul-devouring beast. When we return, we will naturally have food to eat." Seeing that Zi Chen still did not respond, the young man shook his head and patted his own head. "Looks like there is something wrong with my brain. Can an idiot like you understand reason? This time, we are unlucky." He raised his head and looked at the sky through the gaps in the leaves. "It's getting dark. We have to hurry back to the village." Shan Yue nodded. "You idiot, don't tell me you want to bring him back too. You have to know that we have no food to feed this idiot. Moreover, letting him live like an idiot is also a kind of torture. It's better for him to stay here and perish on his own." Shan Yue was a little hesitant. Although Zi Chen could not move, he could hear the conversation between the two. The young man kept calling him an idiot and even patted his head a few times. Naturally, he was very angry. However, compared to living, the anger in his heart was naturally nothing. Living was obviously more important. Now, they had to go back and had a place to stay. If they brought him back, he might have a chance to live. But if he stayed here, he would definitely die. Therefore, in order to live, Zi Chen forcibly separated a strand of consciousness to fight against the rules and said, "Save me." At this moment, his obsession to live was incomparably strong. The hesitant Shan Yue was stunned and looked back at Zi Chen. The young man was also stunned. He used his fingers to dig his ears, wondering if he was hallucinating. "Save me." Zi Chen spoke again and then forced his body to move. His body immediately became unstable and fell forward. He did not fall to the ground but fell into Shan Yue's arms. He's not an idiot. He still has consciousness. Then, Shan Yue's surprised and excited voice was heard. And because Zi Chen was distracted, the rules forcibly invaded his body and he fainted. Chapter 3641. Shan Yue, are you sure you want to save him? Maybe it was just a hallucination. If you bring him back, it will only increase the burden on Carter Village. The young man walked beside Shan Yue and said unwillingly. The other two slightly older people silently guarded the two sides, not saying a word along the way. Shan Yue carried Zi Chen on her back and ignored the young man. Look, he has already fainted. Maybe his last consciousness is gone. If you carry him back, won't you be carrying an idiot back? Seeing that Shan Yue did not respond, the young man said again. Cut the crap. Why don't you carry him? Shan Yue finally said. She was annoyed by the young man's words. I won't waste my energy saving an idiot. The young man snorted and did not say anything else. After an hour, they walked out of the forest. After another hour, they came to a village surrounded by wooden fences. The village was not big. There were about 100 families. At the entrance of the village, there were a few children looking forward. When they saw Shan Yue, they began to cheer. Hearing the children's cheers, Shan Yue lowered her head. The expressions of the other two also became unnatural. The young man snorted and said from afar, There is still no harvest today because your sister Shan Yue insisted on bringing an idiot back. The children ran toward them. After hearing the young man's words, they were disappointed. But soon, their attention was attracted by Zi Chen on Shan Yue's back. To be more precise, they were attracted by Zi Chen's black robe and black leather boots. Compared to the barefoot and skimpy people, Zi Chen's attire was a little too bizarre. When they walked into the village, more villagers heard the news. After accepting the fact that there was no harvest, they all looked at Zi Chen curiously. For a moment, all kinds of voices sounded. The young man tried his best to explain to everyone, "This is an idiot whose soul was devoured by a soul-eating beast. Come and see." After Zi Chen said the word help, he tried his best to move and fell into a coma. He did not know what the future would be like. The rules of this place kept rejecting him. They were like waves that kept washing over his body, threatening to swallow him up at any time. Zi Chen had a dream. In the dream, he was tortured. His body was in so much pain that it kept twitching. Finally, he woke up. But the pain was still there. He slowly opened his eyes. His body still felt uncomfortable. As his thoughts returned, his mood became better because he was still alive. As long as he was alive, everything was possible. The rules rejection was not so strong. His body was gradually getting used to it. It was a room made of wood and was relatively simple. The only visible furniture was a wooden table and a stool. Zi Chen guessed that this should be the village of Shan Ya. It seemed that the kind-hearted woman had really saved him. He tried to move his body and found it difficult. Every simple movement required a great deal of strength. But it was much better than when he had first come here. Right now, he was just a body formed by his soul. Everything was controlled by his soul power. Therefore, Zi Chen tried to use the dark ghost devouring soul technique to see if it would work. As he used the technique, Zi Chen's body gradually glowed. Then, an unbearable pain came, causing the corners of his eyes to twitch again. It was as if there were countless flying needles constantly stabbing his body. Following the cessation of the cultivation technique, the piercing pain immediately weakened. Why was this happening? After trying several times, Zi Chen came to a conclusion. The rules of this place did not reject his soul, but the dark ghost devouring soul technique. However, despite the unbearable pain, Zi Chen found that some of his simple movements seemed to save a lot of energy compared to before. Could it be that as long as he kept practicing the dark ghost devouring soul technique and completely adapted to the environment here, he would be able to recover? Zi Chen's heart was filled with joy. It was as if hope had been reignited. Creak. The door suddenly opened and a person walked in. It was Shan Ya. The first thing she saw when she came in was Zi Chen. The two of them looked at each other. There was a touch of joy in Shan Ya's eyes. "You're awake." Zi Chen nodded slowly and said, "Thank you for saving me. You really didn't lose consciousness." Hearing Zi Chen's words, Shan Ya was very excited. She immediately came to the bedside and handed something to Zi Chen. "Here, eat this." It was a round stone the size of a walnut. It emitted a soul light, like the soul-gathering crystal of the Saint Spirit realm. It was very extraordinary. "What is this?" Zi Chen asked, puzzled. "Life spirit fruit. If you don't eat this, you'll die." Shan Ya said, "Eat it quickly." Zi Chen was a little embarrassed. Could this thing be eaten? At this moment, another person suddenly rushed in. It was the young man from before. After he came in, he looked at the bedside and saw Shan Ya holding the life spirit fruit. He said angrily, "Shan Ya, we don't even have enough life spirit fruit, and you're giving it to an idiot." Shan Ya said unhappily, "Han Rui, this is my share. So what if it's yours? There are many people in our village who can't eat the life spirit fruit. Why didn't you give it to them, but to an idiot?" Han Rui said angrily, "Do you know how many people will die because of an idiot? He's not an idiot. He's conscious and has already woken up," Shan Ya said to Han Rui. "So what? He's just an outsider." Shan Ya stood up and stared at Han Rui. She said coldly, "My business is none of your business. You don't have to share my life spirit fruit." Looking at Shan Ya's domineering attitude, Han Rui trembled with anger. "Good, very good. You don't care about the lives of the villagers for an outsider. I'll tell the village chief and see how he punishes you." Han Rui turned and left. With a bang, Shan Ya slammed the door. Zi Chen was embarrassed. In the Saint Spirit sector, he could even kill an 8-star Saint Spirit. His combat power was shocking, but in this place, he was called an idiot. Eat it. Otherwise, you'll die. Shan Ya walked to the bedside again and gave the life spirit fruit to Zi Chen. This kind of thing was obviously very precious here, and from the conversation between the two sides, this was Shan Ya's own share. Zi Chen shook his head and did not accept it. Eat it. Shan Ya insisted again. This is my life spirit fruit. I have the right to distribute it. I can give it to whoever I want. Zi Chen wanted to say that it was a waste for him to eat it. However, seeing Shan Ya's insistence, Zi Chen could not refuse. He could only wait until he ate it and tell Shan Ya that it was useless next time. However, he still had to waste a piece, which made Zi Chen feel bad. He slowly raised his hand and prepared to take the life spirit fruit. Open your mouth. Shan Ya put the life spirit fruit in front of Zi Chen's mouth. Zi Chen opened his mouth and swallowed it. In an instant, a wave of soul power entered his body. The pain in Zi Chen's body lessened significantly. The repulsive strength of the rules also decreased by a level. Chapter 3642. After swallowing the life spirit fruit, the effect was surprisingly good. After all the energy was digested, Zi Chen found that he could move more freely. If he had enough life spirit fruits, he believed that he could solve the problem of the rejection of the rules in a very short time and smoothly adapt to this world. How is it? Shan Ya looked at him with anticipation. Zi Chen nodded and said, much better. After the conversation between Shan Ya and Han Rui, Zi Chen did not expect to get more life spirit crystals. So, if he wanted to adapt to this world, he still had to rely on himself. Then have a good rest. I'll come find you tomorrow. Zi Chen nodded. Shan Ya left and closed the door again. Zi Chen began to practice the soul-devouring ghost technique again. The pain that was relieved before intensified again. But in order to not be called an idiot, Zi Chen had to persevere. Strand after strand of soul power entered his body and became a part of it. However, the soul power from the outside world was like countless thin needles. The process of merging into his body was the process of piercing through his body. The pain was unbearable. But he still had to endure. On this day, the four of them still did not gain anything. Shan Ya, if you didn't save that kid last time, we would have hunted a soul-devouring beast. Han Rui complained about Shan Ya along the way. Now, we have nothing. How are the people in the village going to survive? You're going to watch everyone starve to death. Shan Ya was silent. No one knew if she knew that she was in the wrong. On the second day after Zi Chen woke up, he finally left the room. But his movements were still slow and he had to walk with a wooden stick. A group of sallow and emaciated children led him to the entrance of the village. They were always there, waiting for the return of the hunting team. Although it was called a hunting team, there were only 4 people. I'm Liang Bao. What's your name? A boy about 10 years old looked at Zi Chen with his head tilted. Zi Chen. Zi Chen said. His voice was a little hoarse due to the constant pain in his soul. Which village were you from? Liang Bao asked again. Zi Chen shook his head, not knowing how to answer. Liang Bao mistakenly thought that Zi Chen had forgotten his identity. He said in surprise, are you being used as bait by them? What bait? Zi Chen asked curiously. When hunting the soul-devouring beast, if there is bait, the success rate will be higher. I heard from the village chief that in other villages, those who haven't awakened their soul power would be used as bait. Liang Bao stared with wide eyes and said, you wouldn't be used as bait, right? But then, Liang Bao shook his head and said, that's not right. Looking at your clothes, you should be from a big tribe. You shouldn't be used as bait. Hearing Liang Bao's words, Zi Chen was even more grateful to Shan Ya. The timing of his appearance was completely a natural bait, but Shan Ya saved him. In this kind of place, this kind of character was rare and commendable. We're back, we're back. The voices of the other children sounded, followed by cheers. Zi Chen raised his head and saw the 4 of them return empty-handed. Obviously, they didn't get anything today. The group of children cheered and ran forward. Chen let out a sigh. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. We didn't get anything today. It's that damn idiot who made us so unlucky. We didn't get anything for the past few days. As he spoke, Han Rui looked at Chen. His eyesight was extraordinary, and he saw Chen standing at the door to welcome them. Han Rui, shut up. What does this have to do with Chen? Shan Ye said unhappily. In the morning, she went to Chen's room again and talked with Chen. She learned his name. If it wasn't for him, we would have gotten something a few days ago. Why would we wait until now? Han Rui said coldly, now, we didn't get anything for the past few days. I don't know how many people will starve to death in the next few days. Han Rui looked at Chen and said unceremoniously, I told you not to save him, but you didn't listen. Now, in our village, I don't know how many people will starve to death because of him. At this time, the group was approaching the entrance of the village. Han Rui looked at Chen, snorted, and said, idiot. Then, he turned and entered the village. Shan Ye walked to Chen and said embarrassedly, don't mind him. Han Rui is such a person. He didn't mean to target you. Chen nodded. He was living under someone else's roof, so he didn't have the right to express his opinion. A group of children led the 4 people into the village. To them, it didn't matter if these people had any gains, as long as they could come back alive every day, it would be the greatest comfort. Chen stayed there alone, looking at the gradually darkening sky. He looked at the dark forest at the end of his vision. He thought to himself, what kind of place is this? He felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. Cough. A light cough could be heard from behind. Chen gathered his thoughts and immediately turned his head. He saw an old man with a walking stick standing behind him. Chen bowed to the old man. The old man walked to Chen's side, and a light flashed in his hand. A life spirit fruit appeared and he handed it to Chen. Chen looked at the old man. The old man's back was hunched, and his face was full of wrinkles. He didn't seem to have much time left. He shook his head and didn't accept it. Even though deep down, he knew that the life spirit fruit was a good thing. How does it taste? The old man said again, his voice hoarse and weak. Chen shook his head again. He had been in this village for a few days, so he knew the value of the life spirit fruit. It could be said that it was something that could really save lives. Everyone's lives. The old man didn't force him. He put away the life spirit fruit and walked to Chen's side. He said, in this place, no one can survive without the life spirit fruit. Chen listened quietly and didn't interrupt. The old man continued, the life spirit fruit is the only thing that can sustain life. If you want to survive, you have to keep getting the life spirit fruit. Chen asked, how do you get the life spirit fruit? The old man said, catch a soul-devouring beast and go to the tribes that have the god's grindstone to exchange for the corresponding life spirit fruit. God's grindstone? What's that? Chen asked again. The old man smiled and said bitterly and mysteriously, it's something very precious. It's so precious that we can't get it no matter what. Chen fell silent. Chapter 36:43. The life spirit fruit was the most important thing in this village, just like food in the mortal world. However, the people living here did not need food, only life spirit fruit. Once there was no life spirit fruit, they would die. The children Chen saw were mostly yellow and emaciated because they ate too little life spirit fruit, which meant that they did not have enough food and were malnourished. Under such circumstances, Chen did not want to waste their life spirit fruit. Right now, he could slowly adapt to the rules here through cultivation. He did not need either food or life spirit fruit. Chen returned to his room, leaned the wooden stick against the door, and prepared to continue his cultivation for the day. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Come in. Chen looked up at the door. The wooden door was pushed open and Shan Ye walked in. Like most of the people here, she wore very little. Chen gestured for Shan Ye to sit down, but he was a little surprised. Usually, Shan Ye would come before the hunt. You can walk now, looks like you've recovered well. Shan Ye sat down and looked at Chen. Chen limped to Shan Ye and sat down across from her. The two of them were separated by a wooden table. Zichen smiled and said, "It's okay, but it's still a little inconvenient to move. I'll get better slowly. Here you go." Shan Ye took out a life spirit fruit and handed it to Zichen. Zichen shook his head and said, "Eat it. If you don't have enough stamina, you won't be able to hunt a soul-eater beast." Shan Ye's expression was a little gloomy. There had been no harvest for many days. If this continued, the people of Carter Village would starve to death. This was not unprecedented. Shan Ye was silent. The atmosphere in the room was a little depressing. After a while, Zichen broke the silence and said, "Can you tell me about soul power?" Shan Ye looked up and glanced at Zichen with a complicated expression. There was no astonishment, only complicated feelings. Logically speaking, it was impossible for a person who lived in this world to not know about soul power. Zichen wasn't surprised by Shan Ye's nonchalant expression. "I'm very curious about soul power." Shan Ye stretched out his hand, and a black light swirled in his palm. The black light turned into a rope and slowly extended toward Zichen. "This is the soul-binding chain," Shan Ye explained. The rope was like an agile snake as it began to circle on the table. Zichen stared at the soul-binding chain. It was completely composed of soul power, so it could extend at will. It can only be used to trap the soul-devouring beast. The final attack will be completed by the soul-shocking light. Shan Ye said, "The soul-shocking light can't kill the soul-devouring beast. It can only make it lose consciousness temporarily." Zichen frowned slightly. Shan Ye didn't notice Zichen's abnormality and continued, "These are the only two soul arts in our Carter village. However, I'm the only one who knows the soul-shocking light." "What about the holy talisman art?" Zichen asked. "You don't know the holy talisman art?" "Holy talisman art? What's that?" Shan Ye asked in confusion. Zichen didn't answer in detail. Instead, he asked again, "Is it the same in other villages?" Shan Ye lowered his head and said with some shame, "The other villages have more soul arts than us. Our Carter village is the weakest type." This wasn't the answer Zichen wanted to know. However, from another perspective, Shan Ye actually answered his question. Here, there were only soul arts. The only difference was the quantity. Isn't this the holy talisman realm? Why is it like this? Or could it be that the Temple Lord's information is wrong? This isn't the holy talisman realm? Zichen fell into deep thought. After some time, Shan Ye's voice sounded again, "Can I ask you for a favor?" Zichen came back to his senses and looked at Shan Ye. "Can we not leave Carter village?" Shan Ye said nervously, "Or, can we not abandon Carter village?" Zichen didn't understand. In our place, once a village can't survive, they will merge. However, some merge to survive and grow, while others merge to obtain more bait. Shan Ye's eyes dimmed. Currently, only the four of us can hunt in Carter village. However, there are more than 100 people here. The nearby villages that want to merge with us want to use us as bait. Zichen wasn't surprised by this. If the strength of both parties wasn't equal, then the weaker party would naturally be bullied. For example, in Carter village, there were only 4 people in the hunting team, but they had to provide food for everyone. This was considered a burden. Under such circumstances, the people from other villages wanted to merge with them because they wanted the villagers who hadn't awakened their soul power. Once they were accepted, these people would become bait to hunt the soul-devouring beast. On the other hand, if there weren't 4 but 40 soul hunters in Carter village, it would be a different story. The strong preyed on the weak. This rule existed everywhere. Zichen didn't give a definite answer because he didn't understand what Shan Ye meant. The next morning, Shan Ye didn't visit Zichen. When Zichen walked out of his room, he heard some villagers talking. It was said that they set off early in order to find a good place to hunt today. After a night of cultivation, Zichen's condition improved and his steps became more agile. According to Zichen's estimation, he should be able to recover in about half a month. After basking in the sun at the door, Zichen returned to his room and continued to cultivate. He wanted to adapt to this place as soon as possible. At noon, there was a sudden commotion outside, mixed with angry roars. It's all because of that damn idiot. If it wasn't for him, Shan Ya wouldn't be in trouble. It was Hanrue's voice. He seemed to be very angry. I'm going to kill him. Then, there was a wailing sound outside. By the time Chen heard the news and walked out of the room, everyone in the village had come out and were crying. The atmosphere was filled with despair. What happened? Chen looked at Liang Bao in the crowd. His eyes were red and he was very sad. You still dare to ask what happened? Hanrue angrily came to Chen and grabbed Chen's robe. It's all because of you. It was you who killed Shan Ya. Chen's head buzzed. Shan Ya was dead. The only person in Carter village who could use the soul shock light was dead. Then who could catch the soul-devouring beast next? Without someone to act in the end, this village would be completely finished. The cries around became more tragic. Everyone was in despair. Even their eyes on Chen became unfriendly. It's you, it's all because of you. You killed Shan Ya. I want you to die with her. Chapter 36-44. Everyone looked at Chen with extremely cold eyes. Hanrue was still shaking Chen, his cold eyes seemed to want to devour him. How did Shan Ya die? Chen did not argue with Hanrue, but directly asked for the cause of death. In his heart, he could not accept this fact. She was taken away by the soul-devouring beast. A soul hunter next to him said, "Taken away? That means, you didn't see her die." Chen was slightly stunned. Taken away by the soul-devouring beast, can there still be a way out? Kid, I want you dead. Hanrue's voice was extremely cold, his eyes full of killing intent. Chen's face also turned cold little by little. You want me dead? Why? Why didn't you chase after them and save Shan Ya? Hanrue was speechless. Chen forcibly pried his hand away. I think you're afraid of death. Nonsense. Hanrue said angrily. Chen said indifferently, if you're not afraid of death, why didn't you chase after them? If you chased after them and saved Shan Ya, your Carter village would still have a chance of survival. Now that you've run back, where is your chance of survival? Next, who will be responsible for the final blow with the soul-devouring light? Everyone's cold eyes became complicated one by one. Hanrue's expression was changing. Pushing all this on me, are you trying to show how innocent you are? Chen sneered. Even if you're innocent, so what? Next, can you still live? You don't know the soul-devouring light, only death awaits you. Hanrue's expression suddenly became resolute. Death? That's for trash like you. I'm a person who awakened soul power, can't I live? The expressions of the surrounding villagers instantly changed. They guessed a certain possibility. Hanrue's gaze swept across the villagers and said, everyone, don't blame me. If you continue to stay here, only death awaits. In order to live, I can only accept the invitation of the Isa village. The hearts of the crowd sank to the bottom of the valley. They were in complete despair. Chen sneered and said mockingly, no wonder you didn't save them. It turns out that you left a way out for yourself. Hanrue ignored Chen. Instead, he looked at the other two soul hunters and said, Vern, Clark, have you two thought it through? Now that things had come to this, only death awaited them if they continued to stay here. The two of them naturally wouldn't hesitate any longer. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. We'll go with you. Cries came from all around again. Shan Ya was already dead. He did not expect that the other three spirit hunters would also leave Carter village. Then, Carter village could only be destroyed. The 100 or so people in the village could only starve to death. Kid, I won't kill you today. I want to see how long you can live after losing Shan Ya. Henry turned around and left decisively. Immediately, a few villagers came forward and begged Henry to take them away. You worms and trash, what do I need you for? Henry said with disgust. If it weren't for Shan Ya, I would have left this place long ago. You don't know shit and eat more than anyone else. Why should I serve you? Get out. After a few kicks, he kicked the villagers away. On the other side, Vern and Clark had found their family members in the crowd and were ready to leave. But after a few steps, Clark suddenly stopped. He walked to Zi Chen and said, "Shan Ya said you were extraordinary. Now that her life is unknown, I hope you can show your extraordinary side." This was left by Shan Ya before she was taken away by the soul-eating beast. You can find Shan Ya through it. As for whether she's alive or dead, I can't guarantee. Clark gave a stone with soul power to Zi Chen. He took a last look at the crowd, his face full of guilt. "Clark, are you stupid? You expect a man who can't even walk normally to find Shan Ya?" Henry said with dissatisfaction, "Leave that soul power. When we have time, we can collect Shan Ya's body. You gave it to a cripple. What's the use?" Zi Chen held the soul stone tightly. It was indeed exuding Shan Ya's aura. Cries of pain were heard all around. Today was a day of despair for Carter Village. An old man stood behind the crowd. He was the only one who didn't cry. Zi Chen turned around and saw the old man. He remembered what the old man said yesterday, so he walked forward. The crowd automatically parted, and Zi Chen limped to the old man. The old man looked at Zi Chen. They looked at each other. Zi Chen's eyes were full of determination. Deep in the old man's eyes, there was a touch of expectation. Zi Chen said, "Does what you said yesterday still count?" At this time, someone noticed this scene and gradually stopped crying. "Of course." The old man's voice was still hoarse. "I need 3 life spirit fruits." Zi Chen said, "At least 3. The 3 words life spirit fruit seemed to affect everyone's spirits. All of a sudden, all the crying stopped. Everyone looked at Zi Chen, their expressions changing. Some people thought that Zi Chen was crazy to ask the village chief for life spirit fruits at this time. Everyone's eyes immediately fell on the old man. At this moment, they became extremely nervous. "I'll give you 5. The old man said. There was an uproar. "Village chief, are you crazy? You're giving 5 life spirit fruits to an outsider?" A villager said angrily. "The life spirit fruit is our life. Why should we give it to an outsider?" Another person questioned loudly. "I don't agree. If you want to give it to us. Why should you give it to an outsider? It's our thing. We should distribute it ourselves." The next group of villagers squeezed the group of children out and came forward. Their expressions were very ferocious. This was their last food, indicating how long they could live. Of course, they were unwilling to give it to an outsider. "All of you, shut up." The old man suddenly roared, and the surrounding noise instantly disappeared. The life spirit fruit was given to Zi Chen to save Shan Ya. "Why should I give it to you?" The old man stretched out his finger and said with a trembling voice, "If it wasn't for little Shan Ya, would we have survived until now? Right now, she's in danger. You don't want to save her, but you want to snatch the life spirit fruit. Do you have any conscience? Giving you the life spirit fruit will only let you live for a few more days. In the end, you'll still die. If you can save Shan Ya, you'll have a future." The surroundings were silent. Many people lowered their heads. They had not awakened their soul power, so they could not catch the soul-devouring beast. The only reason they could survive until now was because of Shan Ya and the other 3. "Village chief is right. Then give me the life spirit fruit. I'll save Shan Ya." A voice suddenly came from the silent crowd. "Second brother Ge, you haven't even awakened your soul power. How are you going to save her?" The old man was furious. "I haven't awakened my soul power, but I'm still a normal person. If I can't do it, do you think a cripple can?" Second brother Ge pointed at Zi Chen and said disdainfully. The old man was so angry that his body trembled. At this moment, Liang Bao squeezed into the crowd and raised a small cloth bag in his hand. The small cloth bag contained the life spirit fruit. 5 of them. Zi Chen took it and turned around. The crowd surrounded him, especially the tall second brother Ge. He was the first to bear the brunt. His expression was ferocious, and it was obvious that he wanted to snatch it. Zi Chen's eyes immediately turned cold. A murderous intent appeared in his eyes. "Whoever dares to stop me will die." Such a cold gaze made the villagers tremble and stop in their tracks. Zi Chen opened the cloth bag, swallowed a life spirit fruit, and walked forward. The crowd automatically dispersed. After 10 steps, Zichen swallowed the second life spirit fruit. His body no longer swayed, and his footsteps gradually stabilized. When he reached the village entrance, Zichen swallowed the third fruit. His back was straight, and he no longer staggered as he strode out of Carter village. Chapter 36:45. The old man stared at Zichen's back and did not speak for a long time. The future of Carter village was in the hands of this young man. If he succeeded, Carter village would have a bright future. Perhaps they could recreate the glory of the past. If he failed, the name Carter would disappear from this world forever. Grandpa village chief, bad news. Uncle Ge went to your house and snatched the fate spirit fruit. At this moment, Liang Bao ran over in a panic and shouted anxiously. The old man didn't get angry. He looked back at Liang Bao and patted his head with a kind smile on his face. Grandpa, aren't you going to take a look? Liang Bao tilted his head and looked at the old man in confusion. The old man shook his head and said, No, I won't starve to death if I don't eat the fate spirit fruit for a day or two. The future of Carter village would be decided in 2 days. The old man turned around and looked at the noisy scene. He shook his head. If little Shan Ye saw this, she would be very sad. With little Shan Ye's potential, she would be one of the top figures in any village. Many people had looked for her in private, but she was willing to stay in Carter village and protect the village. Liang Bao hugged the old man's leg and felt fear. The kind uncles in his eyes had shown their ferocious and terrifying side today. The old man patted Liang Bao's head gently and said, Don't worry. Perhaps this is a chance for our Carter village to be reborn. Liang Bao nodded as if he understood. The strong men led by Brother Ge snatched all the fate spirit fruits in the village. Many villagers were beaten to the ground and wailed. At this moment, everyone's nature was revealed. The old man looked on silently and did not stop them. Liang Bao trembled at the side. Brother Ge took the life soul fruit he had snatched and walked over. Old man, I think you're old and blind. How could you believe an idiot? Brother Ge said rudely. The old man asked calmly, Are you leaving? If not, are you going to stay here and wait for death? Second Brother Ge's face was full of sarcasm. Then, he spat on the ground and turned to leave. Many people left with him. Following that, more and more people left. There was not a single soul hunter left in Carter village. Only death awaited them if they continued to stay. In just an hour, all the strong men had left, leaving behind only the old, weak, women, and children. Zichen walked out of Carter village and started running. The 3 life spirit fruits allowed him to move freely, and the suppression of the rules was reduced to its lowest. Next, Zichen swallowed the 4th life soul fruit. He could feel that the suppression of the rules had completely disappeared, and there seemed to be a faintly discernible power in his body. Zichen looked at the soul stone in his hand. It was glowing, which meant that he was heading in the right direction. As he sped up, he swallowed the 5th life soul fruit. In an instant, the life spirit fruit turned into pure soul power and merged with his body. At the same time, Zichen felt the approval of the rules. A feeling that came from the unseen world entered his heart. He extended his palm, and a light flickered in the center of his palm. That was his soul light. He possessed soul power. Immediately after, a mysterious space appeared in his consciousness. In that space, there were many holy runes. They were the holy runes in Zichen's original spirit ring. Seeing these holy runes, Zichen's last worry disappeared. After running for an hour, Zichen heard the roar of the soul-devouring beast. The soul stone in his hand became brighter and brighter. Shan Ya, whose aura was weak, fell to the ground in a sorry state. An intense gale whistled through the air, sweeping up countless fallen leaves. They blew against her face, causing her to feel pain. She glanced behind her, and there was obvious fear in her eyes. She felt very lucky that her soul was not swallowed by the soul-devouring beast on the spot. But, what should she do next? In a hurry, she left a soul stone. Now that she thought about it, she realized that it was useless. Instead, it was a waste of her soul power. The 2 soul-devouring beasts in front of her were fighting and biting each other. They had no time to care about her. Her injuries were very serious. She had barely crawled here and was already exhausted. When they decide the winner, will I die? Looking at the battle, Shan Ya suddenly shook her head. No, I can't die here. If I die, what will happen to the rest of the village? In Carter village, she was the only one who knew the soul-shaking light. Once something happened to her, without the soul-shaking light, everyone in the village would starve to death. She bit her lip, and a trace of blood flowed down the corner of her lips. The pain made her sober, and a force seemed to be born in her body out of nowhere. I can't die, I can't die. Shan Ya's eyes became incomparably determined. She relied on the strength of her hands and slowly crawled forward on the ground with difficulty. Who knew that at this time, the soul-devouring beasts in front of her had decided the winner. One of them ran for his life. The one that brought Shan Ya back was the winner. Its nose trembled slightly as it smelled Shan Ya's scent. It turned its head and looked into the distance. There, Shan Ya was still slowly crawling forward, very strenuously. It moved. There was a sudden gust of wind, and the wild grass lowered, revealing Shan Ya's figure. A shadow appeared in front of her, and the shadow was getting bigger and bigger. Shan Ya immediately turned her head and saw the soul-devouring beast flying towards her. The beast's teeth were like weapons, and it was already very close. It seemed that in the next moment, her head would be bitten off. At this time, a golden light appeared in the distance. It was a huge arm, whistling and falling on the soul-devouring beast's body. With a loud bang, the golden arm exploded, turning into countless specks of golden light that drifted down. Shan Ya looked at the infinite light in front of her and was completely stunned. The soul-devouring beast had already flown dozens of feet away, and its body rolled a few times on the ground. After getting up, it stared in another direction, and a cruel light flowed in its eyes. In the sky full of golden light, a person swept out from the grass. Shan Ya saw the figure, and her eyes were full of shock. Are you okay? The person who came was naturally Zichen. He looked at Shan Ya and found that there were not many wounds on her body, but her breath was weak. Shan Ya shook her head. She, who had just brushed shoulders with death, asked excitedly, "You've recovered?" Zichen said, "Kind of." He had indeed recovered, and he also had soul power, but he was still unable to fight. Fortunately, he still had the holy talisman, or he could only watch as Shan Ya was swallowed up. In front of Zichen, a golden light lit up. It was the holy talisman. The heavenly saint arm. However, after reaching here, the level light on the heavenly saint arm disappeared. And when he used it earlier, its power seemed to have weakened. It was obviously the first time Shan Ya had seen such a scene, and she immediately widened her eyes, looking at the golden light floating in front of Zichen. Pa! The heavenly saint arm shattered, and a huge golden arm appeared, like the hand of a giant. Roar! The soul-devouring beast roared and pounced towards Zichen. The heavenly saint arm blocked in front of Zichen. Chapter 36-46. The golden arm was like the hand of a giant. It was filled with tyrannical power as it swept towards the soul-devouring beast. The aura was vast and mighty. Countless rays of light poured down, illuminating the surroundings. Compared to the huge heavenly energy saint arm, the soul-devouring beast was simply too small. Shan Ya's eyes widened. This was the first time she had seen such a battle. Bang! The heavenly energy saint arm suddenly shattered. The soul-devouring beast passed through it and charged towards Zichen. Looking at the shattered heavenly energy saint arm, Zichen's expression changed. Although he knew that the heavenly energy saint arm was suppressed here, it should not be so weak. A strong wind blew as the soul-devouring beast approached. A holy symbol appeared in front of Zichen again. This time, it was the 5-star holy symbol, lightning sweep. Boom! The holy symbol exploded in front of him. The power of the holy lightning raged, forming a terrifying wave. The soul-devouring beast was sent flying again. However, Zichen was also forced back by the powerful shockwaves. Looking at the soul-devouring beast that landed in front of him without any injuries, Zichen's face revealed a look of surprise. His holy symbol did not seem to have much effect. With a thought, another holy symbol appeared. This time, A total of 10 heavenly energy saint arms appeared. After the holy symbol shattered, the huge arms whistled forward and smashed onto the soul-devouring beast's body. This time, Zichen saw very clearly that the soul-devouring beast was not injured at all. It was as if it was immune. Holy lightning symbol, lightning sweep. Following that, Zichen used these two spells again. The aura was vast and majestic, but it could not do anything to the soul-devouring beast. Shan Yue stared ahead and gradually noticed something strange. Zichen's strange attack looked very strong, but for some reason, it could not hurt the soul-devouring beast at all. After coming to this world, he could only use his spiritual energy. However, Zichen's spiritual energy had just awakened and was too weak. Coupled with the fact that he did not know any soul techniques, he did not have the power to fight the soul-devouring beast. His only reliance, the holy symbol, was immune to it. He had met his nemesis this time. Cold sweat gradually appeared on Zichen's forehead. If this continued, the two of them would probably die here today. Peng! 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 The soul-devouring beast smashed through one holy talisman after another, constantly closing in on Zichen. The distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer. In a situation where there was no combat power available, Zichen would definitely die if he allowed the other side to close in. Therefore, Zichen gritted his teeth and took out his final trump card. Ghost Spirit Saint Talisman. He didn't dare to hold back. All 36 Ghost Spirit Saint Talismans appeared and turned into 36 ghost spirits. They let out ghost-like noises and flew forward. Pa! The soul-devouring beast's claws descended and struck the ghost spirits that formed the talisman array. The ghost spirits began to distort and emit a sharp sound. Moreover, its luster dimmed. In the outside world, ghost spirits were completely immune to all energy attacks, but that was obviously not the case here. Fortunately, the ghost spirits were fast enough. Before the soul-devouring beast could attack again, the 36 ghost spirits had already entered the opponent's mind. In the next moment, the soul-devouring beast seemed to have lost control of its body and fell to the ground with its head raised. Zichen stood in the distance and watched silently, but his heart was beating like a drum. When he was in the Saint Spirit domain, the ghost spirits had never disappointed him. However, this place was too abnormal, and Zichen did not have any confidence in his heart. The soul-devouring beast began to struggle, as if it was in great pain. Zichen was still extremely nervous. After a while, the soul-devouring beast stopped struggling and fell to the ground, motionless. It's dead. Zichen's expression was uncertain. Based on his understanding of the Ghost Spirit Saint Talisman, once he killed the enemy, he could get a part of the soul feedback. But now, there was no soul feedback. Did that mean that the soul-devouring beast was not dead? Or was it playing dead? Just as Zichen was hesitating, Shan Yue spoke. It fainted. Zichen looked at Shan Yue with a questioning look in his eyes. Every time I use the soul shocking light, the soul-devouring beast will do the same, Shan Yue explained. Then when will it wake up? Zichen asked. Under normal circumstances, it can last for 5 days. We just need to get rid of it within 5 days. Shan Yue struggled to stand up. She looked at Zichen and asked curiously, what did you use just now? Saint Talisman. In your world, you use that to fight. Zichen was not surprised by Shan Yue's words. In this place, everyone was working hard to survive. It was normal for someone to die. Everyone here was used to seeing life and death. Why did Shan Yue save him back then? He knew nothing about this world and did not even know about the life spirit fruit that could sustain life. Why was Shan Yue not surprised? Why was the old man willing to believe him and give him 5 life spirit fruits? Obviously, Shan Yue and the old man should know where he came from. Looking at the silent Zichen, Shan Yue said, "Thank you for saving me." Zichen said, "If you want to thank someone, you should thank yourself. If you didn't save me back then, I wouldn't have been able to save you today." Zichen walked in front of the soul-devouring beast and kicked it. There was no reaction. It seemed that it had really fainted. "Do you know where I come from?" Zichen squatted down and looked at the soul-devouring beast. "I don't know." Shan Yue shook her head. I only heard about the descenders from Grandpa Village Chief, but I've never seen one. Grandpa has never seen one either. It's a story passed down from generation to generation in Carter Village. Shan Ya lowered her head and said embarrassedly, "Actually, when I saved you that day, I didn't mean it. I just thought that you might be the descender that Grandpa talked about. So, thank you for saving me." Zichen turned around and smiled. "Whether you meant it or not, you saved me, didn't you? You just need to remember that you saved one person, and that person is Zichen. That's enough. Tell me about the descenders. What do you know?" Zichen was curious. Grandpa said that the descenders dress very strangely. When they first arrive in this world, their bodies will have abnormal conditions. But they are natural soul hunters. As long as they adapt to this world, they will become strong in a short time. Any village that has a descender will quickly grow stronger. Shan Ya said, "According to Grandpa, our Carter village used to be a very large tribe in the early years. Back then, there were descenders who helped us." The sky gradually darkened. The old man stood at the entrance of Carter village. This Carter village that had existed for many years was like the old man in front of him. It had already reached the end of its life. Today, Carter village, which had experienced too many changes, was once again facing the crisis of extinction. "Grandpa, let's go back." Liang Bao stood beside the old man and pulled his arm. "You go back first." The old man rubbed Liang Bao's head and continued to look ahead. His mood was complicated. Could it be that Carter village will be destroyed in my hands? Suddenly, the old man's eyes changed. Liang Bao's eyes gradually lit up. Chapter 36-47. Liang Bao's eyes widened as he looked at the figure in front of him. He thought of a possibility and found it unbelievable. When the figure got closer, he finally saw them clearly. "Brother Zichen, Sister Shan Ya." His excited voice rang out, causing the silent Carter village to be filled with life. The old man's body was also trembling when he saw Zichen carrying Shan Ya on his back. Behind him was a huge black figure. If it wasn't the familiar soul-devouring beast, what else could it be? The legend is true. The old man was extremely excited. Shan Ya saved Zichen, and he was willing to believe in Zichen. He even provided Zichen with life spirit fruits for free because of the legend of the descenders. "They're back, they're back." Liang Bao's high-pitched voice sounded as he ran forward excitedly. The quiet village, or even the village of despair, seemed to welcome the dawn. Everyone walked out of their houses and ran towards the village entrance. Liang Bao ran towards Zichen. As he ran, he started crying. Zichen carried Shan Ya on his back and the soul-devouring beast behind him. When he saw Liang Bao, he smiled. "Seeing your sister Shan Ya back, shouldn't you be happy? Why are you crying?" Liang Bao immediately wiped the tears on his face and nodded. "Yes, I'm happy, happy." Shan Ya also smiled faintly. If not for Zichen carrying her, they would have spent the night in the forest. "Let's go." Zichen walked forward. Liang Bao only saw the soul-devouring beast behind him now. Although this was not the first time he saw it, he was excited this time because no one would have to die. Zichen walked to the entrance of the village and saw the villagers standing at the entrance with mixed feelings. Zichen's gaze swept across them and his expression changed slightly. Shan Ya, who was still on Zichen's back, looked at the villagers and asked, "Where are the others? Did they go out to look for me and not come back? It's so late, it's dangerous for them to stay outside. Where's Han Rui? He didn't come back either." Everyone lowered their heads, and some began to cry. Zichen said, "Go back and rest first. We'll deal with the soul-devouring beast tomorrow." Shan Ya, who was very happy to see the villagers again, lowered her head. Her mood instantly turned down. She was smart enough to guess what had happened from everyone's expressions and Zichen's words. Zichen carried Shan Ya to her room. After settling her down, he turned around and left. Walking out of Shan Ya's residence, Zichen saw villagers all around him. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, everyone. Shan Ya will recover soon. It's nothing serious. Zichen, I really have to thank you this time." The old man stood in front, trembling as he bowed to Chen. Chen rushed forward to support the old man. "Old man, you can't do this. If it weren't for Shan Ya, I would have been dead. This is what I should do." Plop. Behind them, the other villagers all knelt on the ground. Chen, who was supporting the old man, quickly said, "What are you all doing? Get up quickly. You saved the lives of all of us in Carter Village." The old man said, "You deserve this bow." On this day, Carter Village, which was about to be destroyed, welcomed a new hope. Chen returned to his room, filled with emotions. The moment he saw the sudden decrease in the number of villagers, he already understood what had happened. All the strong men had left without even bringing their families. Of course, they weren't looking for Shan Ya, but for a way to survive. This was the reality. But he couldn't blame those people because they were also trying to survive. Chen threw away all distracting thoughts and began to cultivate. No matter which world it was, strength was the foundation of everything. The soul-devouring technique absorbed the soul power around him. After entering his body, it turned into soul power. His originally weak soul power was now growing stronger. The first ray of morning light shone into Carter Village. The whole village seemed to have woken up and was bright again. Chen opened his eyes. After a night of cultivation, he had gained a lot. At this moment, his stomach growled, and he felt a sense of hunger that he hadn't felt in a long time. This feeling was not for food, but for the life spirit fruit. Sure enough, after being recognized by this world, I have to follow the rules of this world. Chen shook his head. He wasn't too surprised. He had hunted a soul-devouring beast yesterday. Today, he could exchange it for the life spirit fruit. He walked out of the room. The sun shone on his face, making it warm. The children woke up early and played around the soul-devouring beast. They were happy again. The other villagers, after experiencing yesterday's despair, were in a good mood today. With the life spirit fruit, they had a future. Shan Ya's injuries were mostly healed. She could move without any hindrance. After Chen left yesterday, the old man came to her room and told her about the current situation of Carter Village. She was sad for a long time because of this. The old man told her that this was actually a good thing for Carter Village. There was no need to feed those ingrates for free. Plus, the children were still here. They were the real future of Carter Village. Shan Ya woke up early in the morning. There was not a single life spirit fruit in the village. She had to exchange for some. Under the gazes of the villagers, Chen carried the soul-devouring beast and left Carter Village under Shan Ya's lead. The closest tribe with the divine soul heaven grind is the Noah tribe, which is 100 miles away. "We have to speed up." After leaving Carter Village, Shan Ya said, "And we have to be careful along the way. There are some villages that specialize in robbing soul-devouring beasts on the roads. When we went there in the past, it was always the four of us." To the original Chen, a distance of 100 miles could be covered in an instant. But here, his soul power was limited. He couldn't fly. He could only carry the soul-devouring beast and walk slowly. A 10-man hunting team was preparing to go deep into the forest to hunt the soul-devouring beast. "Leader, we found something." When they were about to enter the forest, they suddenly heard a voice from behind. A man came quickly and said loudly, "We found the people of Carter Village. They are heading to the Noah tribe with the soul-devouring beast." The middle-aged leader was stunned. He turned back and said, "Carter Village?" "Yes." The man nodded quickly. "Impossible. Carter Village doesn't even have a soul hunter. How can there be a soul-devouring beast? Are you seeing things?" A man in the team said. He was none other than Hanrue from Carter Village. He had joined Isa Village. Vern and Clark were also shocked. "I can't be wrong. One is Shan Ya. I don't know the other one. He is wearing strange clothes. He is in charge of carrying the soul-devouring beast." The man said. "What?" Hanrue exclaimed again. "Shan Ya didn't die?" Vern and Clark looked at each other and saw joy in each other's eyes. The man carrying the soul-devouring beast must be Chen. He really saved Shan Ya. The leader was a little surprised. Then he looked at the three and said, "Hanrue, it's time for you to perform." What do you mean? Hanrue was stunned. It's time to test your loyalty. Go and bring the soul-devouring beast back. Chapter 36-48. Vern and Clark were dumbfounded as they looked at the leader in front of them. What do you mean? Hanrue was also startled. I've given the half-dead Carter village too many chances. My patience has long been worn out. The leader glanced at the three of them and said coldly, moreover, you abandoned Carter village yesterday. Who can guarantee that you won't abandon us in the future? So, if you want to prove your loyalty, go and snatch the soul-eating beast for me. Also, either win Shan Ya over, or kill her if you can't win her over. A murderous intent flashed in the leader's eyes. This time, I want to take over Carter village. Hanrue was a little dazed and his mind was blank. Of course, he was happy that Shan Ya was not dead, but the Yijia's request was too much. Fern and Clark followed behind him in silence. The two of them did not expect the Yijia leader to be such a person. After walking for dozens of miles, Zichen put the soul-eating beast on the ground and sat on a big rock to rest. His hunger grew even stronger. This was a feeling that he hadn't felt in a long time, and it made Zichen think back to his youth. Shan Ya sat beside Zichen and looked into the distance with boredom. After a while, Zichen came back to his senses and said, "Can you teach me how to use the soul-binding chain?" During the battle yesterday, Zichen had already found that the holy runes effect was greatly suppressed. And here, the difficulty of rewriting runes had increased a lot. He had decided to do as the Romans do and learn the soul techniques here. Of course. Shan Ya said, that's the simplest soul power control. It's relatively easy to master. You just need to concentrate your mind. Shan Ya personally taught Zichen. A black light appeared in her palm and then gathered together to become a black rope. Why don't you try? After explaining some control tricks, Shan Ya looked at Zichen and said. Zichen did not respond and looked ahead. There were 3 people there. Shan Ya followed Zichen's gaze and saw Hanrue's trio. Shan Ya stood up. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Hanrue looked at Shan Ya with a complicated expression. Zichen was still sitting there, not getting up. He was surprised to see the 3 of them here. That was all. He didn't have a bad impression of the 3 of them, but he didn't have a good impression of them either. Vern and Clark looked at Zichen. It was obvious that Shan Ya was alive because Zichen had saved her. He dared to challenge the soul-devouring beast on his own. They admired his courage. Moreover, the fact that Zichen could succeed was even more unbelievable to them. Shan Ya was silent. She didn't know what to say to Hanrue. She had heard about what had happened yesterday. After the other party came back, he pointed the spearhead at Zichen and was the first to leave. As for saving her, he had no intention of doing so at all. At most, he would bury her in his spare time. Hanrue looked at Zichen again and said coldly, I used to hate you very much. I still hate you now, even if you saved Shan Ya. If you hadn't appeared, we would still be living well. But your appearance has disrupted our rhythm. So, the culprit of all this is actually you. Zichen, who was sitting on the big stone, didn't expect Hanrue to point the spearhead at him at this time. He stood up and said, maybe everything is as you said. It's because of me this time. But so what if you got the soul-devouring beast last time? There will be a time when you can't get the soul-devouring beast. Shan Ya, what if an accident happened at that time? Would you sacrifice yourself to save her? Hanrue said coldly, if it weren't for you, this kind of thing wouldn't have happened at all. Because this is how we lived all these years. Zichen shook his head and didn't bother to pay attention to him. He had seen this kind of people before. In fact, he had seen many of them. It seemed that even if something big happened, he would not be wrong. Even if you pointed it out to him, he would still feel that he was right. For example, yesterday, he had given up on the mountain pass and abandoned the villagers. Today, he had come here and claimed that he was the one who had to bear all the blame. The past is the past. There's no need to look into it. Shan Ya, who had been silent, finally spoke. She looked at the 3 and asked, what are you doing here? Vern and Clark looked a little embarrassed and didn't dare to say their intentions. Hanrue didn't care and said directly, I'm here to invite you to join the Isa village. Not interested. Shan Ye refused directly. Hanrue's face suddenly showed some anger and said discontentedly, why do you want to stay in that broken place? Use your hard work to provide for a group of blood-sucking bugs. They won't do anything and will only waste our harvest. Shan Ye's eyes became a little colder. You said they are blood-sucking bugs. Then do you remember that it was those blood-sucking bugs that raised you and me? Without them, would you and I be alive now? Shan Ye and Hanrue were both orphans. They grew up in Carter village. Before the village chief and the others lost their soul power, they were responsible for hunting soul-eating beasts. But as they grew older, their soul power began to fade and eventually they became ordinary people again. So what? I will remember their kindness. But what can we get by staying in that place? Hanrue said angrily, we will only be a burden and have no future. And what do we get for making such a big contribution? That broken place will still be Carter in the future. Shan Ye, if you come to Isa village, when you are strong enough and surpass the chief, Isa village will become Shan Ye village. It may even become Shan Ye tribe in the future. Come to Isa village. Only there will you have a better future. Zichen looked at Hanrue as if he was looking at an idiot. He couldn't help but say, this is your goal? Just for a name? What does an idiot like you know? Hanrue said disdainfully, this is the goal of all of us. It represents infinite glory. Zichen said, I don't know, but I know very well that you, who don't even know the soul-shocking light, will never reach this goal in your life. You are courting death. Hanrue's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Shan Ye said, give up. I will never leave Carter village in my life. Hanrue stared at Shan Ye, you really don't want to go? Shan Ye said decisively, even if I die. Hanrue's gaze suddenly turned into that of a man-eating beast. There was disappointment and madness in his eyes. Then you must have taken a fancy to this idiot. Since you're so willing to die with him, then I'll fulfill your wish, you bastard. Hanrue waved his hand and said, kill them. The next moment, 2 black soul power ropes flew out from behind Hanrue. It was Vernon Clark who had been silent. Chapter 36:49. Bang! There was a loud rumble, and a powerful shockwave spread out. Yi Jia was sent flying again. The black rope around him disappeared immediately. He fell to the ground, rolled several times, and suddenly coughed up blood. After the soul-shaking light, Shan Ye's face immediately turned pale. His body shook and he almost fell down. At this moment, Vern, Clark, and Henry were still immersed in the scene of Zichen using the soul-binding chain with his left hand. This battle happened very quickly, and it ended even faster. In just a few exchanges, Ija was injured and defeated. As for the others, they seemed to be in a bad state. Zichen stood there with a cold expression. Chief. The soul hunters came forward and helped Ija up. Ija looked at Zichen and asked in shock, who are you? He knew that the soul-binding chain was the lowest level of soul technique. It was far inferior to his soul-severing knife, so he didn't bother to cultivate it. But he had never seen anyone who could cultivate the soul-binding chain to such an extent. It was impossible to use it with both hands at the same time. Zichen stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, you don't need to know who I am. Don't worry, I won't kill you today, but I will let you go on condition. You must send Vern and Clark's families safely to Carter village. Without giving them time to think, Zichen looked back at Henry and said, let him go, too. Vern and Clark were still in shock. Zichen's strength had a great impact on them. At this moment, when they heard Zichen's words, they immediately nodded and let go of Henry. Henry stood there and didn't move. He was completely dumbfounded. Zichen's means had completely subverted his understanding. Zichen didn't look at Henry, but walked to Ija in front of him. The soul hunters around Ija became very nervous. They looked at Zichen as if they were looking at a demon. Because they had never seen such a powerful and strange person. What do you want? Yi Jia looked at Zichen, his expression changing. Zichen walked in front of Ija and smiled. Don't worry, I said I won't kill you, so I won't kill you this time. Looking at the smile on Zichen's face, Iza did not feel reassured. Instead, he felt even more terrified, as if the devil was smiling. Zichen reached out and took a small cloth bag from Iza's hand. "I'm just hungry. I want to borrow some food from you." There were 4 life spirit fruits in the small pouch. Zichen came back with the small cloth bag, his back facing Iza. Yi Jia's gaze began to change. If he made a move in this situation, he would definitely be able to severely injure the other party. That damnable fellow actually dared to snatch my life soul fruit. With his back to Iza, Zichen suddenly raised his hand. Yi Jia's expression slightly trembled, and there was fear in his eyes. Did that damn guy change his mind? "Thanks." Zichen waved his hand and said without turning his head, "I won't see you off. Let's go." Iza did not dare to stay here any longer. He turned around and left. "Leader, wait for me," Hanrue shouted and followed after him. After everyone left, Zichen's face instantly turned pale, and his aura weakened significantly. Shan Ye noticed Zichen's abnormality and asked nervously, "Zichen, what's wrong with you?" Zichen waved his hand and said, "I'm fine. I didn't control my power well before. I consumed too much of my soul power, so I'm a little weak." Vern and Clark clicked their tongues. He was already so powerful. How could he say that he didn't control his power well? Of the 4 life spirit fruits, Zichen swallowed 2 directly, handed the other 2 to Shan Ye, and said, "Hurry up and recover. Don't let anyone see any flaws." Shan Ye, who wanted to refuse, had to take the life spirit fruit. In this world, the life spirit fruit represented everything. After eating 2 life spirit fruits, the hunger obviously disappeared, and the soul power that had disappeared before began to gradually replenish. "We have to go, too." After feeling that some of his soul power had recovered, Zichen said, "Let's exchange for the life spirit fruit as soon as possible. The people in the village are still waiting." Vern and Clark took the initiative to step forward and lifted the soul-devouring beast. At this time, the 2 of them still hadn't recovered from the previous scene. When they looked at Zichen again, they were still extremely shocked. "What soul technique did you use before?" On the way, Shan Ye finally couldn't help but ask. "Soul binding chain? Didn't you just teach me?" Zichen said. When Vern and Clark heard this, they were shocked again. When they approached the 2 of them, they happened to see Shan Ye teaching Zichen the soul binding chain. Did she only say it once, and Zichen remembered and learned it? But our soul binding chain can only be activated with the right hand. It can't be used with both hands at the same time. Shan Ye said, "Your soul binding chain is obviously different from ours." Zichen smiled and said, "It's mainly focused on the mind. Nothing is impossible." Hearing Zichen's words, Shan Ye thought of the legend of the Descenders. Each of them was a natural soul hunter. Was it because Zichen was a Descender that he could be so powerful? Yi Jia left with his people, but he was very angry. He originally wanted to destroy Carter Village, but he didn't expect that the life spirit fruit would be taken away. "How are you guys?" Yi Jia looked at the others. He had seen the previous scene with his own eyes. The opponent's strange attack was too terrifying. They shook their heads, indicating that they were fine. "How can you be fine?" Yi Jia was stunned. He had heard the screams of the people before. That guy's attack looked very strong, but it wasn't that strong. "None of us were hurt," one of them said. Yi Jia said angrily, "Then why didn't you attack back then?" Their expressions all changed. Previously, they were actually scared stiff. After seeing their leader being easily defeated, they even lost the will to fight. But now that they were out of the place, they realized that they weren't hurt at all. "So he only attacked me, and none of you were hurt?" Yi Jia said with a gloomy face. The others nodded. "What is the background of that guy? Why is he so strange?" Yi Jia looked at Hanrue, who had been silent all this time. "His name is Zichen, an idiot who was saved by Shan Ye. Just yesterday, he was a cripple with no soul power. I didn't expect him to have soul power today," Hanrue said angrily. "He only had soul power today?" Yi Jia's face became gloomier, and his eyes began to change, "So he wasn't that strong, and was just trying to scare us?" Hanrue shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. In this matter, he obviously didn't dare to make wild guesses, because Zichen's use of the soul-binding chain really scared him. Leader, he must be trying to scare us. How about we go back now? A soul hunter said. Yi Jia waved his hand. Whether the other side was lying or not, the previous calmness and killing intent were real. Although he didn't know what was so strange about the guy named Zichen, the previous golden attack was obviously not a soul power attack, which was really strange. Looking at the leader's silence, Han Rui suggested, how about we detain Vern and Clark's family first? Let's find out more about that guy first. Chapter 3650. Zichen's group of 4 continued on their way, and nothing unexpected happened during this time. Along the way, Zichen explained the use of mind power to the 3 of them. In fact, in this world, soul power was equivalent to the holy thunder energy in the saint spirit realm. Zichen naturally had a deep understanding of the holy thunder energy. He had even created his own energy technique with extraordinary power. Although there was also soul power in the saint spirit domain, soul power was too mysterious. Only a small number of people were able to grasp the wonders of soul power. However, it was different here. Soul power was the only power in this place, and it existed in one's body just like the power of the holy lightning. Furthermore, due to the rules of this place, Zichen had a deeper understanding of soul power. Coupled with his previous experience of controlling energy, he was able to use the soul power that filled his body in some simple ways. For example, when he dodged Yi Jia's attack, he gathered soul power under his feet and accelerated his speed instantly. Zichen explained in detail, but the 3 of them obviously didn't understand. Even if they understood, they couldn't do it. Some common sense in the saint spirit realm didn't work here. Then, Zichen made another request. Could he teach him the soul-shaking light? Compared to the soul-binding chain, the soul-shaking light was obviously more lethal. Hearing Zichen's words, Vern and Clark's eyes lit up with expectation. They already knew that Zichen had only used a short period of time to learn the soul-binding chain, and had even improved it. If Zichen learned the soul-shaking light, what would happen? Not to mention whether Zichen would improve this soul skill again, the fact that there was a second soul hunter in Carter Village who could master the soul-shaking light would greatly improve the overall combat strength. The soul-shaking light was no secret in Carter Village. As long as one was a soul hunter, he or she was qualified to cultivate it. But whether one could master it was another matter. Shan Ya was certainly very happy to teach Zichen the soul-shaking light. Vern and Clark carried the soul-eating beast all the way. When they didn't need her and Zichen's help, she taught Zichen how to use the soul-shaking light on the spot. During this time, he chanted an incantation, causing his soul energy to form vibrating ripples. Zichen had come into contact with countless techniques, so he was very clear about the use of incantations. It was to resonate with the rules of this place and increase the success rate. It was just like how certain spells needed to be cast in order to succeed. But once one grasped the knack of it, all of these could be given up. Zichen began to experiment, circulating his soul power in his palm. The rules of this world were a little special, allowing the effects of soul power to be infinitely magnified here. And the difficulty of cultivating spirit techniques would be greatly reduced. After Zichen tried several times, a clear light pattern appeared on his palm. The 3 of them were shocked. Vern and Clark looked at Zichen as if they were looking at a monster. They couldn't believe that Zichen could comprehend the soul-shocking light so quickly. They had been practicing hard for a long time but couldn't master it. Shan Ya was once again shocked by Zichen's identity as a descender. Vaguely, she seemed to have a deeper understanding of the natural soul hunters. For people with soul power, 100 miles was not too far. The Noah tribe appeared in front of them. According to Shan Ya, this world was dominated by villages, and large villages would become tribes. The name of a tribe would often change, which usually meant the change of the strong. For example, the Noah tribe didn't have this name 20 years ago. It was only after Noah became the strongest of the tribe that it changed its name. Outside the tribe, there was a high wall fence guarding it. It looked like a small town, and many people were coming in and out of the gate. During this period, There were many people like Zi Chen's team who brought soul-devouring beasts. But almost all of them brought several soul-devouring beasts with them, and there were many people guarding them. It was rare to see someone like Zi Chen who only had one soul-devouring beast. There were people guarding the gate, and only those who entered would collect the life spirit fruit. Shan Yue said, "This is the rule of the Noah tribe. When outsiders enter, they have to pay a life spirit fruit as a toll. If you don't have one, you can come out and give it to them, but the price is double." They didn't have any life spirit fruits on them. Zi Chen had already swallowed the 4 life spirit fruits that he had obtained. How many life spirit fruits can one soul-devouring beast be exchanged for? Zi Chen asked. About 200, but you have to leave a quarter as the reward for activating the God's Grindstone. Hearing Shan Yue's words, Zi Chen smiled faintly and said, "That's a good plan. In this way, as long as the God's Grindstone exists, the Noah tribe will never decline." Shan Yue nodded. Every day, many people from the village would come here to exchange for the life spirit fruits. Just the daily rewards from the God's Grindstone were already a lot. But the Noah tribe was also very powerful. Otherwise, the God's Grindstone would have been snatched away long ago. Vern and Clark put the soul-devouring beast on the ground. They obviously didn't intend to go in. Zi Chen had never been here, let alone seen the God's Grindstone. Naturally, he wanted to go in and have a look. Shan Yue needed to lead the way for Zi Chen, so the two naturally had to go in. So, Zi Chen carried the soul-devouring beast and walked forward under the leadership of Shan Yue. At the gate, Shan Yue said a few words to the guard at the gate. The guard nodded and let them in. The Noah tribe was not small. The specifications of the houses were obviously far better than those of Carter Village. The God's Grindstone was in the center of the tribe, in a very conspicuous position. After Zi Chen walked into the Noah tribe, he felt that it was full of rich soul power. It was like a cultivation treasure land. The soul power was far more abundant than that of Carter Village. He looked around along the way and found that the expressions of the people along the way did not change. They seemed to be used to this. "Are there many soul hunters here?" Zi Chen suddenly asked. "How do you know?" Shan Yue said with some surprise, "The number of soul hunters in the Noah tribe is indeed more than that of other tribes. And the number of awakened soul hunters every year is also very large." This place was like the Tianwu continent where Zi Chen had been. In a place full of heaven and earth energy, every child born here was a cultivation genius. Because before they were born, the environment they grew up in had provided them with great convenience. However, Zi Chen had not found any unusual terrain here before. Why was the soul power so abundant, and several times more than that of Carter Village? The doubts in his heart were quickly answered. Chapter 3651. A huge millstone that was 5 feet tall, emitting pure black light, stood in the center of the Noah tribe. It was the divine soul heaven grind. The heaven grind was rotating slowly, and the surrounding space was distorted. Countless soul power lingered in the surroundings. "I see." Seeing the huge heaven grind in operation, Zi Chen finally understood. The heaven grind was constantly rotating, and the soul power that filled the surroundings would be devoured and crushed by the heaven grind, turning into pure soul power that flowed out from the bottom and spread in all directions. This Noah tribe was equivalent to having pure soul power constantly pouring in. Over time, the physiques of the people living here would change. If Zi Chen's guess was correct, the people who lived near the heaven's grindstone would benefit the most as well. At this moment, there was a village that was carrying the soul-devouring beast forward. There were a total of 3 soul-devouring beasts. When they approached the divine soul heaven grind, a surge of energy gushed out from the divine soul heaven grind. The 3 sleeping soul-devouring beasts slowly floated up, and then flew up and entered the heaven grind. A rumbling sound came from the heaven grind, as if there were countless lightning and thunder revolving around it. Following that, an even purer soul force formed an intense ripple that spread out. The soul power blew Zi Chen's hair and robe. He took a deep breath, and a rich soul power entered his body, and was refined by the ghost-devouring soul technique. He had obtained a surge of pure soul power. Zi Chen looked at the others again, and they all had an intoxicated look on their faces, but they did not obtain any substantial benefits. Then, there was a surprised cheer from the front. Life spirit fruits appeared from the bottom of the heaven grind, and there were more than 600 of them. Shan Ya went forward to negotiate, and Zi Chen was still looking at the heaven grind. It seemed that every time the soul-devouring beast was refined, the heaven grind would give the Noah tribe additional benefits. In this way, as long as it was properly managed, it was impossible for the tribe to be defeated. And it was actually very simple for a tribe to grow. They just needed to obtain a divine soul heaven grind. Zi Chen, come quickly, it's our turn. Shan Ya waved at Zi Chen. Zi Chen carried the soul-devouring beast and walked forward. Oh, it's little Shan Ya. You haven't been here for a long time. Suddenly, a voice full of vigor rang out, and a shirtless man walked over. Along the way, everyone bowed to the burly man with a respectful expression. Shan Ya greets the chief. Shan Ya's expression changed when she saw the burly man walking over, but she still saluted him along with the others. Zi Chen was a little surprised. He didn't expect this person to be Noah, and he didn't expect him to know Shan Ya. No one came to Carter village for a long time. I was worried about you for a long time. I thought something happened to you. The brawny man said with a smile. It's okay. We're living a good life. It's just that we haven't gained much recently, Shan Ya said. The brawny man sighed and said, that's a pity. I've been looking forward to that old man's death. Once he's dead, you'll be free. You're talented. It's a pity to stay in Carter village. Shan Ya said with a serious face. Shan Ya is a man of Carter village. When he dies, he'll be a soul of Carter village. Good, good. Noah laughed and said, go back and tell that old man to die early. That old man has been following that stupid rule. Carter village should have been destroyed long ago. Shan Ya's eyes were filled with suppressed anger. Noah didn't notice it at all. He turned to look at Zi Chen. You're from Carter village too? Why haven't I seen you before? Zi Chen and Noah looked at each other. In an instant, Zi Chen tensed up as if he saw a soul-devouring beast lurking in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. He had goosebumps all over his body, and his expression became extremely vigilant. This was the most dangerous existence Zi Chen had ever seen since he came to this world. Even though he had easily defeated the Eza leader a few hours ago, the moment he laid eyes on Noah, a feeling of invincibility rose in his heart. Zi Chen didn't reply immediately. Laughter came from all around. Haha, this kid is obviously scared out of his wits. The clan leader is mighty. With just a single sentence, he was able to scare a person so much that his soul nearly scattered. Hearing the mocking laughter, Zi Chen came back to his senses and nodded at Noah. Then, he carried the soul-devouring beast and walked forward. When he came close to the heaven grindstone, a burst of energy flew out and the soul-devouring beast was automatically drawn into the grindstone. During this time, Noah looked at Zi Chen's back and fell into deep thought. As a person with strong soul power, he knew very well that the other party had been extremely vigilant just now. In the eyes of others, the other party was just scared out of his wits and didn't dare to speak. In fact, the other party was on guard, not out of fear or cowardice, but because he was preparing. He was preparing to attack. Although the other party's soul power was so weak that it couldn't withstand a single blow, his perception still moved Noah. However, he didn't care because the other party's soul power was too weak, much weaker than Shan Ya's. Moreover, the other party was in a broken place like Carter village. Even if he had a few decades, he wouldn't be able to reach his current height. Then, he saw the other party cheering excitedly because he saw the life spirit fruits one after another. Therefore, the vigilance in Noah's heart completely dissipated. If he paid attention to a guy who hadn't even seen the world, it would be a disgrace to him, the chief of the tribe. A total of 231 life spirit fruits was a big harvest. Even if he gave them a quarter of the cost of using the heaven grindstone, they would still gain a lot. According to the current population of Carter village, these harvests could be used for a while. After exchanging the items and deducting the share, Shan Ya put away all the life spirit fruits. Then, the two of them left. Help me pass a message to the old man. If he wants to die, Die quickly. Carter's broken rules should have been changed long ago. When they left, Shan Ya heard Noah's words, but he didn't respond. Zi Chen followed Shan Ya, but he was silent all the way. At the gate, Shan Ya took out 4 life spirit fruits and gave them to the gatekeeper. Vernon Clark immediately came up, looking quite excited. This was the first harvest in Carter Village in a few days. After leaving the Noah tribe, Zi Chen finally asked the question in his heart, "Do you know the chief of the tribe?" Noah sighed slightly and said, "Many years ago, he was a member of our Carter Village. At that time, he wanted to change Carter Village to Noah Village, but the village chief grandfather didn't want to, so he took some people and took the initiative to leave Carter Village. In fact, it's not just Noah. In the history of Carter Village, many people left for this reason." Zi Chen was slightly startled and said, "Just because of a name? Is it necessary? I don't understand, but for some people, it's all they have." When Shan Ya said this, Vernon Clark kept shaking their heads. They felt sorry for him and sighed at the same time. Carter Village used to be very famous. The reason why it became like this was because many people couldn't see hope, so they left. Hanrue was like this, and Noah was even more so. In recent years, Noah was the most famous existence. If he was still in Carter Village, it was believed that Carter Village would have been strong again.